Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the response. It is, normally we don't get one. Today is Monday, October 23rd, and this is a joint committee meeting of the Education and Culture Committee and Public Safety Committees. I'm chair of the Education and Culture Committee, Will Jawando, and I've got my illustrious co-chair here, Councilmember Katz, who you'll hear from momentarily. And we're going to have two items today. First will be a briefing and an update from a recent Office of Legislative Oversight report on the school to prison pipeline, followed by an update on the Community Engagement Officer program with MCPS. So obviously things are related. We thought we'd put them together. And I'll just say at the top, school safety is top of mind for all of us, especially right now, holistic safety, getting to school, being safe in school, mental, physical health. We're concerned about that. There's a lot of aspects to it. We do know that we've been having an ongoing discussion in the county about, on this first item, for example, disparities in discipline and interaction with law enforcement. For those, the school to prison pipeline is about this historic trend that we are living a part of, just like the rest of the country, of indexing of students of color, students with disabilities in discipline and with interactions with law enforcement. And so we've done a lot of great work in the county, and I'm excited to hear about this report, but we have more to do. Safety has to be a holistic model that is in partnership with the community and all members of the community. And so we're looking forward to hearing about that. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Katz before we go to the briefing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You've certainly said it all. Today there will be no votes on either one of the two topics. This is strictly for us to get updates and to see what is and what isn't working, and to get that information. During the conversations and the council chair for the Education and Culture Committee certainly touched on this. One of my great concerns is we certainly don't want any young person to ever feel uncomfortable in school or out of school, but we also want to make certain that they're getting the services that they need to assist them. The state law, I guess, has changed that they don't arrest someone 12 and under, or however that's unless it's a violent crime. And I want to hear whether or not anybody has any update on that young person that's not being quote unquote arrested, but it's certainly it didn't mean that they didn't do something that they should be receive services for, so that they wouldn't go any further than what they've already been associated with. So with that, look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Chair Katz. For the first item, I know we'll get a briefing from OLO, and we can have, should we have other folks from MCPS come up now? That'd probably be good. So Mr. Montaloni, I see you waiting in the wings here. Shauna K, Jordan B, are you here? There you go. Okay, the team from MCPS, come on up.
You should say what OLO stands.
Yes, OLO is Office of Legislative Oversight, and then I think also Assistant Chief Mark Yamada. You can just come on up now too, Mark, and Captain Satinsky. And I know Dr. Bonner Tompkins will kick us off and run us through the report, and then we'll have everyone see it. And the good news is the heat is on today. We were up here last week and we were freezing, so. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Bonner Tompkins.
Thank you. You all can hear me?
Left is on, right? Left is on.
It used to light up.
Yeah, so it's not lighting up.
You're
Okay.
on now.
All right, so you can hear me.
We can hear you, but and everyone else can hear you.
Good morning. My name is Elaine Bonner Tompkins, and I'm a senior legislative analyst with the Office of Legislative Oversight. I appreciate the opportunity to share key findings and recommendations from OLO Report 2023-6, Addressing Racial Inequity in the School to Prison Pipeline. Before I begin, I would like to thank my colleagues who provided assistance and feedback on this project report, including Chitra Kalenderg, who compiled much of the data included in the report. I plan to spend about 20 minutes briefing this committee on highlights from the report, and I look forward to answering questions the committee may have after the presentation. So let's begin with the definition. The school-to-prison pipeline refers to the higher risk that students suspended from school face for entering the juvenile and adult criminal justice systems. Given this definition, the prior County Council tasked OLO to update our 2016 report describing the school-to-prison pipeline in Montgomery County to describe whether the size or magnitude of the pipeline had changed since the original report, and to also describe whether racial disparities within the school-to-prison pipeline had diminished. As the Council has prioritized racial equity and social justice in its oversight, this updated school-to-prison pipeline report also describes background on both historic and contemporary racial inequities in schooling and policing that foster racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline, and information on promising practices for eliminating racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline based on a review of relevant research. The school-to-prison pipeline involves youth interactions across multiple agencies. These agencies are listed on the slide above. The current report focuses on the first two agencies, Montgomery County Public Schools, and to a lesser extent, the Montgomery County Police Department. One more classification before we begin. Our project report distinguishes between two concepts, racial disparities and racial inequities. Racial disparities refer to differences in outcomes by race and ethnicity. For example, Black students are suspended at higher rates than white students. Racial inequities, on the other hand, refer to biases that can occur at the individual, institutional, or structural levels that foster disparities by race and ethnicity. For example, implicit bias contributes to disproportionate suspension rates for Black students. This slide describes the methodology used for this project. We reviewed available data to track trends in school-to-prison pipeline contact points. We typically compare 2015 to 2020 data, so the report primarily describes pre-pandemic trends. We also reviewed research studies and a variety of task force reports regarding the institutional drivers of the school-to-prison pipeline, particularly in schooling and policing. Finally, we also examined a variety of resources on best practices for eliminating racial disparities in outcomes broadly and in the school-to-prison pipeline in particular. So what are our findings? Our first finding is that among school discipline measures, such as incidents of school removals and overall suspension rates, the size or magnitude of the school-to-prison pipeline remained unchanged between 2015 and 2020. However, among juvenile justice and diversion measures, the size of the school-to-prison pipeline has diminished. This slide, for example, compares trends in MCPS enrollment between 2015 and 2020 to school removals for suspensions and expulsions. It shows that the number of school removal incidents during this time frame generally tracked with changes in school enrollment, and that the overall percentage of students removed from school remained unchanged at about 1.2% of the student body. This slide, however, comparing trends in juvenile justice metrics, shows a decline in the magnitude of the school-to-prison pipeline. For example, the juvenile arrest rate declined by 18% between 2015 and 2019, and the number of charges considered by the Department of Juvenile Services declined by 36% between 2015 and 2020. This slide also shows that there has been a decline in the number of youth referred to the county's 2 juvenile diversion programs. For example, the number of youth referred to the Department of Health and Human Services Youth Diversion Program declined by 69% between 2015 and 2020. Our second key finding is that despite the school-to-prison pipeline remaining the same on school measures and declining on juvenile justice and diversion measures, racial disparities within the school-to-prison pipeline have remained unchanged. Black children continue to be twice as likely as their share of the population to be suspended or referred to DJS. Additionally, the impact of disability and gender on school suspensions is also racialized, with disability and male gender status increasing the risk of suspensions for Black and multiracial children, but not for other children. This slide comparing the demographics of MCPS enrollment to key school-to-prison pipeline metrics shows that Black children remained more than twice as likely to be removed or arrested at school or referred to DJS as compared to their share of the population. Whereas Black students were a fifth of MCPS enrollment in 2020, they accounted for more than 40% of school suspensions and removals, nearly half of school arrests, and more than half of DJS intakes, probations, and commitments. Conversely, Latinx students were removed from school and referred to DJS in proportion to their share of school enrollment, while both white and Asian students were underrepresented among school removals. White children were also underrepresented among DJS intakes and probations, but remained overrepresented in the county's diversion programs aimed at preventing youth from entering the juvenile justice system. A review of Montgomery County Public Schools data submitted to the Federal Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights shows a wide variance in suspension rates by race and ethnicity, gender, and disability status. Among 20 student subgroups, Black and multiracial boys with disabilities had the highest suspension rate at 10 to 11%, followed by Black and multiracial girls with disabilities who had a suspension rate of 6 to 7%. Black boys without disabilities had the next highest suspension rate at 5%, and this was followed by Latino boys with disabilities having a suspension rate of a little less than 5%. Average suspension rates for the remaining 10 student subgroups ranged from a low of 0.3% for Asian and white girls without disabilities to a high of 3.8% for white boys with disabilities. While the original OLO report found that students with disabilities and boys were overrepresented in the school-to-prison pipeline, an in-depth review of OCR data on MCPS shows that the impact of disability and gender on school-to-prison pipeline risk is racialized. For example, Black boys without disabilities tend to have higher suspension rates than white and Asian boys with disabilities. And Black and multiracial girls with disabilities also have higher suspension rates than white and Asian boys with disabilities. The OCR data suggests that being Black or multiracial are stronger determinants of school-to-prison pipeline risk than disability or gender status. Moreover, a review of OCR data for MCPS for other categories of school discipline, such as arrests and expulsions, show that Black students are the only student subgroup by race and ethnicity that are overrepresented in school discipline among both students with disabilities and students without disabilities. This further affirms that race is a stronger determinant of school-to-prison pipeline risk than disability or gender status. So Black children continue to be overrepresented in school removals and juvenile justice involvement in Montgomery County. The follow-up question we considered with this project is why? Contrary to popular belief, there is no evidence that racial disparities in suspensions and other school-to-prison pipeline metrics reflect differences in student behavior by race. There is a whole body of research led by Russell Skiba and others that demonstrates that Black children are persistently over-disciplined for similar infractions in schools and over-sentenced for similar offenses in the juvenile justice system. Based on a review of available research and the work of subject matter experts, such as the Maryland Commission on the School-to-Prison Pipeline and Restorative Practices, OLO finds that racial inequities, i.e. biases among individuals and institutions, better explains why Black children are overrepresented in the school-to-prison pipeline. More specifically, historic and contemporary racial inequities among individuals and institutions are more determinant of racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline than racial differences in student behavior. Historical inequities that drive racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline include a legacy of segregated and under-resourced schools for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. The legacy of segregated, under-resourced schools for BIPOC children is rooted in the formation of two separate education systems for children in the county, one white and well-resourced, and the other Black and severely under-resourced. Although MCPS began to desegregate after the Brown v. Board decision, it did so in a way that prioritized the preferences of white families that often preferred preserving racial and socioeconomic segregation over the preferences and desires of Black families that often preferred greater access to high-quality educational resources through integration. As noted in prior OLO reports, segregated and under-resourced schools for BIPOC communities continue to persist in Montgomery County. Historic inequities that drive racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline also include a legacy of over-policing in BIPOC communities. The legacy of over-policing in BIPOC communities is also rooted in a history of social control and second-class citizenship for Black and Indigenous persons, with law enforcement having its origins as slave patrols during the 19th century. The use of state violence to enforce Jim Crow laws, disenfranchising BIPOC communities, and the mass incarceration of Black and brown bodies in response to the war on drugs continues to impact BIPOC communities disproportionately. The historic legacies of racial inequities in public schooling and policing contribute to three contemporary racial inequities that foster and sustain racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline. The first is the discipline gap, where BIPOC children are treated more severely. The discipline gap reflects the combined impact of implicit bias, the criminalization of student behavior, and the use of police officers in schools on BIPOC students. The second is the opportunity gap, where BIPOC children have limited access to high-quality educational experiences. The opportunity gap reflects the persistence of racially segregated schools and under-resourced programs for BIPOC children. And the third contemporary racial inequity is the power gap, where BIPOC communities who are most harmed by the school-to-prison pipeline often have the least power to diminish it. Our final key project finding is that developing policies with the power to reverse racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline requires addressing rather than ignoring racial inequities. Further, centering the needs and leadership of BIPOC communities is central to developing policies with the power to reduce racial disparities. OLO finds that standard approaches to developing policies to reduce racial disparities are often inadequate for reducing racial disparities because they ignore racial inequities. As noted above, there are 5 key features of standard approach solutions. They often offer a limited recognition of historical and cultural context. They often focus on individual actions, behaviors, and attitudes. They often intervene only on the underadvantaged side of inequality. They often leave unquestioned the privileged status of whiteness. And they often seek only short-term or immediate impacts. Examples of standard approach policy options for reducing the magnitude of the school-to-prison pipeline that are unlikely to reduce racial disparities within it include maintaining or training police officers assigned to schools, which often ignores the historical and current context by assuming that police officers in schools enhance relationships and school culture for all students. A focus on fixing at-risk students and staff, because its focus on individuals often ignores the role of systems and institutions in fostering racial inequities. A focus on targeting student subgroups and schools with the highest suspension and/or arrest rates, because this approach does not consider why other student subgroups and schools have low suspensions or arrest rates, as well as developing benchmarks based on white norms, because it leaves unquestioned the privileged status of whiteness. Conversely, policy options that reflect a structural approach are more likely to reduce racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline because they focus on addressing racial inequities as root causes. As noted above, there are 5 key characteristics of structural policy approaches to reducing racial disparities. Those characteristics are being rooted in historical and cultural understanding, targeting the effects of interacting systems and institutions, questioning both the underadvantaged and overadvantaged in developing policy options and interventions, challenging the privileged status of whiteness, as well as seeking to eliminate root causes of racial inequity over the long term. Examples of structural approaches to policymaking that are more likely to reduce racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline than standard approaches include replacing police officers in schools with counselors to respond to racial inequities in policing and access to mental health services, fixing inequitable policies and practices to foster racial equity in resource allocations and outcomes, studying over and underrepresented students and schools in the school-to-prison pipeline to identify and scale up racially equitable opportunities, as well as centering BIPOC stakeholders in policy development to ensure policy recommendations reflect the perspectives, life experiences, and expertise of BIPOC communities. Finally, the utilization of a racially equitable process to develop policy solutions for reducing racial disparities is more likely to develop solutions with the power to reduce racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline than the utilization of racially inequitable and unrepresentative processes. Marlisa Gamblin of Gamblin Consults offers 5 racial equity principles for policymaking to reduce racial disparities. The 5 principles are: center the needs and leadership of BIPOC communities, name and consider each BIPOC community separately, analyze outcomes for each racial and ethnic group, set up policies and programs that are responsive in a way that is proportionate to disparate impact, and create a robust implementation and monitoring plan that is reflective of and accountable to BIPOC staff, institutions, and communities. In sum, OLO finds that structural approaches rooted in historical and cultural understanding that focus on systems, institutions, and the needs and leadership of BIPOC stakeholders offer the greatest promise for reducing racial disparities in the school-to-prison pipeline. Based on these project findings, OLO recommends that the County Council encourage the Board of Education and Montgomery County Public Schools to undertake 4 actions. First, co-develop with community-based BIPOC stakeholders an action plan to eliminate the overrepresentation of Black students in school discipline. 2, use OLO Report 2023-6 to help develop the action plan. 3, share the action plan with County Council and the public at large. And 4, allocate sufficient resources to develop, execute, and evaluate the action plan. So that ends my briefing of OLO Report 2023-6, and I will pass the mantle back to the committee co-chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bonner Tompkins. Really appreciate the work you and your team did on a difficult topic. So I'm just going to shake myself a little bit, because that's always it's always sobering and hard to hear. I always like to use the example of Isabel Wilkerson in Cast, who talks about, like, we live in this house, and this is our house, and we didn't make the house, we didn't build the house, but it's the house we're in, and we all live in it together. Some parts of the house are more sheltered, others aren't, and there's some beams cracking some places, but it's our collective responsibility to reflect on how that house got that way and to improve it for everybody. And that's the spirit in which I know everyone up here enters the conversation. I also want to say that, we've done racial equity trainings, and I know many haven't, that might be watching this or experiencing this and some of the concepts. And I think it's really important to, when you're talking about disproportionality in this way, to remember that the biases that are mentioned, didn't just develop, right? One of the things that when we do in these trainings that always sticks out to me, and I've seen it done almost 20 times, is when you put, like, these big sticky notes on the wall, and you put on Black, white, Latino, Asian, and you give everyone a marker, and you say, go write everything you've heard about those people in those groups. And every time I've seen it done, not necessarily that you believe those things, but put what you've heard about those people by others. The Black one is flowing off the page, and it's 80-90% negative. White one is mostly positive. Latinos probably 75% negative. It's a mixed bag with the Asian group. But if you see these disparities, there has been intentional work in this country over hundreds of years to make sure that that Black population was demeaned, dehumanized, and we still know those things. So it's if we know them, everyone knows them, and our actions, whether conscious or unconscious, produce some of these disproportionalities. So it's not that someone's a bad person; it's just the house that we live in, and we have to be just as intentional in making this work better. And I know that everyone up here is working hard at that. Yes, please. Councilmember Cat.
I just wanted to agree with, first off, I wanted to thank Dr. Bonner Tompkins for really providing a terrific packet for us. Whenever we've had the conversations, either in public or in private, you always cause us to remember and to think and to understand what we need to be understanding, and I applaud you for that, and sincerely thank you for that. And Mr. Chair, you pointed out the fact that these are uncomfortable conversations, and they are, and they should be. But the reality is, if we don't have uncomfortable conversations, then we're not going to be changing, so that we don't have to have uncomfortable conversations. It's not going to change overnight, but that we don't have these uncomfortable conversations over time. And as was pointed out many times, I started first grade in 1956 in Montgomery County, and that was the year they integrated schools in Montgomery County. It's just hard to believe that schools were not integrated prior to my lifetime. And even though Montgomery County did integrate the schools, Montgomery County was not integrated. I mean, the movie theater in Gaithersburg, it was not an integrated movie theater. White children, white people sat downstairs, and the African American community sat upstairs. It's just hard to believe that during my lifetime we've seen this. And we have come a long way, we have, but we sure have a long way to go. And we can't say that anything changed, though it was based on the Supreme Court for the integration of schools. We can say that if they hadn't had the conversation, if they haven't had the Supreme Court finding, it wouldn't have been at that time in my life that would have happened either. So we need to have this. We need to be upfront and say, what we've gone through. There was a time in Montgomery County that there weren't African American police officers, or women for that matter. And so we've changed from that. There was a time that and you mentioned it, I think, in your book, about how few teachers, educators were, of different racial backgrounds. And that's changed over time. So we are doing better, but we have a long way to go. Thank you.
The perfect co-chairs for this meeting. So you have a short presentation as well, okay, to talk about where we are in the data. All right, so let's go through that, and then colleagues will turn to questions after that. All right, Mr. Montaloni, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings, council members. Damon Monteleone, one of the Associate Superintendents in the Office of School Support and Well-Being. So I too would like to thank Dr. Bonner Tompkins. I mean, indeed, we are all here for the same exact reason, and we are all on the same exact team as we approach this work. And I think one of the things that framed the OLO report was this clarification of the difference between racial disparity and racial inequity, right? And I think as we look to address the disparities that we see in outcomes, whether they are academic or in this case disciplinary, that is not done unless you address the root cause of the racial inequity. And that is not an easy fix. And while we have taken a lot of steps with structural work, I believe that you will hear is in direct alignment with the OLO recommendations. We know that we're dealing with human beings in every classroom and in every building who walk into those buildings with their own lives and their own prejudices and their own biases, and then are in classrooms with perhaps the most diverse student body in the country, in this county right here. So this is the work that we are charged with. This is the work that we will do. And as was stated, yes, our African American and Black students are suspended at twice their population as represented in the school district. It is true. I believe that you will hear that we have taken significant steps to address structural and implicit bias, and to put in data monitoring and to center the voices and the experiences of our communities of color throughout this work. Next slide, please. So just wanted to let folks know, as we go through this presentation, we have highlighted, earmarked, tagged the specific recommendation or approach in our slide deck through which our action or activity is aligned. And I also want to say that while this OLO report came out last summer, the work that you will hear today predates the publication of that work. And to our, happiness to a certain degree, we were aligned before that came out. This reaffirmed where we are and where we need to go. Next slide, please. So again, just restating, we are all on the same team here. The words that I really would like to focus on this slide is that this is our equity statement from the MCPS on our website. Outcomes should not be predictable by race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status, period. And today we'll talk about discipline, we'll talk about suspensions, but this school district is committed to that statement regardless of the outcome. And it is the work that we are doing. It is not easy work, but we will continue to do it. Next slide, please. So as stated, there is a lot of work to do. In addition to the Office of Legislative Oversight's report on the school to prison pipeline, as I'm sure you're well aware, we have engaged with our own qualitative data analysis as a fundamental building block off of the anti-racist system audit, which specifically centered the experience of Black and African American families in this county. And all of the actions that have come out of that audit and the action plan that is in place is centered on those experiences. So that undergirds all of our work. As we have continued to do this work, we are focused on qualitative data analysis from our students and from our staff and from our families in affinity groups, no matter where they may be. We continue to implement collaborative structures and processes with community leaders, community advocates, and our students and our staff and our parents and our caregivers, as you'll hear in this presentation. What we have done differently this year, which you will also hear, is a weekly and daily, if you will, real-time data analysis and monitoring of every single suspension that occurs in this district is audited, is looked at for alignment within the Code of Conduct, and look to see if it is in fact adding to the disproportionality. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Shauna K. Duranby, Director of Student Engagement and Behavioral Health.
Next slide, please. Good morning, council members and Dr. Bonner-Tompkins. I always benchmark my data. I benchmark it with milestones or key milestones even within my life. And so I think about when I started in MCPS almost 20 years ago, we were a district that suspended about 9,000 students in that particular year. And 55% of those students were African American. So as you can imagine, 5,000 students at some point missing school, missing key learning time, and being further disadvantaged within the scope of their education. Over time, with mainly changes in policy, which have had probably the most impact, but also professional development and a keener focus on equity, school, and climate culture work, suspension numbers have decreased to about, and right now they hover under 3,500. So we've gotten them down to about a third of what they used to be. Even within those reductions, though, as wonderful as that is for all of our students, disproportionality still exists. Our African American and Black students are still suspended at twice the rate of their peers. So I mention that because the work is important in what has gotten us from that point to this. And even within the frame of that, there's still so much more work to do. On this slide, it shows just the last few years. We measure total suspensions. So these are total suspensions, including suspensions that might occur more than once for the same student. A keen example of that, thinking about last year at a particular middle school, there's a student suspended 14 times. That student is represented each time within this data set. So it's an unduplicated count, or a duplicated count. In 2016, we had about 52% of our total suspensions be of students that were or that are African American or Black. And as you can see throughout the years, please excuse our COVID data, that's changed, and it hasn't changed fast enough. Still at 42.5%, that represents almost twice the population of our African American students. So I want to highlight some strategies that have helped to get us here and talk about the road and the work that we have to get through to get further. Next slide, please. These are 6 strategies, and I'm not going to read them because we're going to talk about a few of them that we have seen make an impact in the last 3 years. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, that's right. The first one, and the council had so much impact on this, was the introduction of well-being social workers in order to provide direct therapeutic services and diversion services to students. So I want to talk about what that looks like. Last year, between our social workers, we had about 40 social workers last year, 44 for next year. They were able to see almost 5,000 students. Let's think about that. And think about what they were seeing them for. Signs of depression, anxiety, family conflict, emotional dysregulation, which is a big one when we talk about behaviors, history of trauma, and classroom disruption. Those were almost 5,000 students that were seen for direct therapeutic counseling services that might not have been seen before. In addition to that, the places where we're seeing them, if you take a look at the grade level, 9th grade, we know that our highest suspensions come at middle school and 9th grade. So 8, 9, 7, 6. And having those social workers in the high school, seeing our students in those transition years have been really, really critical. Next slide, please. In addition to that service, another high leverage strategy that has had impact, again, this was an initiative from the council, was our Bridge to Wellness services with our DHHS partners. Our social workers in high school serve as liaison to those partners, and for what they do not service in their referrals, they work together with our Bridge to Wellness partners to service. Students and families are also able to self-refer. So our Bridge to Wellness in their initial implementation year, last year, serviced almost 1,700 student referrals, including 787 of those that were self-referred. So they were not brought to them by the social worker or the well-being teams. There were students and families that came to them. And as you can see, some of those areas are the same. The number one is emotional dysregulation, which contributes to some of our behaviors. So I want to highlight those as strategies that have been implemented just in the last 2 or 3 years that have been extremely high leverage. And I want to point out who they serve. Oftentimes when we talk about barriers to service when it comes to mental health, we talk about cultural perceptions about mental health and those barriers. And if you take a look, our African American students are about 34% of services with our Bridge to Wellness, similar with our social workers. Our Hispanic students account for almost 50% of those services. So those have been critical, particularly post-COVID, in addressing some of the behaviors that might lead to suspension, and critical in something that we can't measure, prevention, right? We can't measure how many more infractions would have occurred if those services were not in place. Next slide, please. I want to talk to also about another service that's recent. Again, I benchmark my start, and when I first started here in central office, we had 3 restorative justice specialists on a grant. They worked to support specific schools and to roll out the idea or the philosophies of restorative approaches within schools. Through the support of some of our council teams, including the Student Wellbeing Action Group, and RSSSW, I always skip an S, they were increased to 9 specialists. And because of that, we were able to place them in specifically targeted schools. This represents 8 of our specialists between July 1st and October 19th in those 8 specific middle schools, and they're all middle because that's where most of our discipline occurs. 41%, we've had a 41% decrease in our African and American Black suspension at those 8 schools specifically. So just some of those high leverage strategies that have been put in place have supported the reductions in our disciplinary practices and the increasing the preventative measures that impact our students within those schools. Next slide, please. Finally, I just want to touch a little bit about policy. Dr. Bonner Tompkins said it perfectly, that a lot of the power that we have is not just in what's done locally, but it is in policy. And there were revisions to policy JGA, formerly known as the MCPS Discipline Policy, revised to the MCPS Behavior Intervention Safety and Wellbeing Plan. We know that policy is important, but it means nothing if the implementation is not in place. So there's been a core focus on the trainings and the revisions to some of our sub-policy related to policy JGA. And I'm sorry, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Carla Lopez Arias, who may touch a little bit more about this and talk about.
Remind us what JGA, I know it's like your.
Yeah, so policy JGA is, that's the title there, Behavior Intervention, Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Formerly, it was called the discipline, it's a discipline policy. The titling is,
JGA doesn't mean anything, it's just.
so our legal team would better be able to tell you what the initials stand for.
It's not an acronym, it's just
Right, no, it's,
policies.
right,
Well, that's the problem in government, and then we use those, and we don't know what they mean.
right. And it's so why we put the title included. So you might have recognized it as discipline. We intentionally don't talk about it as discipline because it goes beyond that.
Sure.
It is the intervention for the behavior related to safety and well-being. So it is what you would title formally the discipline plan. Yep.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carla Lopez Arias, Supervisor of Behavioral Health in the Office of Student Engagement, Behavioral Health, and Academics. So while we know that the policy itself is not going to change the implementation or the practices, we know that the implementation is where the movement needs to happen, right? So as you are able to see, there have been some trainings that our staff has engaged in to address some of the biases, to address some of those preconceived notions that we come to the table every single day and every single person in our buildings. Next slide, please. So while disproportionality is addressed at the system level, we're also addressing it in the real time at the school level. So we do have schools that have been identified as having disproportionality in their discipline practices. So those schools have engaged in real-time work with a cross-discipline team of staff within MCPS, where they have developed action plans to address disproportionality for their specific buildings. And that has also been, they have received some feedback through the communities on what they have stated that is the target of the goal for what they are addressing. And also, again, is that real-time work within the team of the school system. From those action plans, they have been able to transfer them into the school improvement plans, which, as you may know, it is now a 3-year process where they're addressing it as one of their goals in there. Next slide, please. Both Mr. Monteleone and Ms. Jarnby had spoken a little bit about the real-time work within our schools. So this year, for the first time, we are creating opportunities for discipline consultations in real time. That means as incidents are happening, we are receiving phone calls and we are providing guidance in some of those areas that may be gray area or that may be impacting one set of population versus other. Well, we are limited in specific staffing to do this work. We are, definitely embedded into the work with the schools at this time. We are auditing suspensions daily for trends and opportunities to intervene. We are coaching school teams around inequitable practices and also offering alternatives to their suspensions. So we are looking at what is the behavior, what is the consequence that has been given, or what are some of the alternatives that could be used for this as well. And of course, we are also deepening our learning in the prevention of suspensions. I will now turn it back to Mr. Monteleone.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez Arias. Next slide, please. So I just got a couple more here, and I'll bring us home so we can get going with the discussion. I think Ms. Lopez Arias spoke about some of the real-time work we're doing with schools, but not only are we doing that micro work and differentiating resources based on the need of each school, such as putting a social worker and an RJ specialist together in our high-frequency schools, we've developed some higher-level accountability at the district level. Every single Friday at 3:45, executive leaders come together and end our week by looking at suspensions, hate bias data, attendance, and serious incidents by school, by student group, by trend. And this is a quick action meeting. This isn't in philosophy. Who's hot? Where do we need to go? What's happening in that building? Let's reallocate resources there immediately and work with the principals. And what has been key is the alignment between our office and the school supervisors. We have put instructions and processes that had not existed previously in MCPS, so our departments are under the same umbrella, school support and well-being, and we are engaging routinely. We share the same meetings, we have the same common agenda items, and we are working collaboratively in ways that we haven't before. An output of that is on a bi-weekly basis. My team, my 8 directors who supervise and oversee some of the data points I just mentioned, right, will go and meet with the school directors bi-weekly. Here's what we're seeing. Here's where you need to go. we're going to join you there. Here are the restorative approaches that we need to put in. Here's how we need to get to some of the implicit bias. And as Mr. Ramby said, for the first time, there is a district level and school level accountability for schools. Not only are we looking at math and literacy data in those school improvement plans, we are looking at that each school has a well-being goal and a climate goal. Okay, so this is the most high leverage accountability structure that we have, is that school improvement plan. I'll go to the next slide if you want to read the last two bullets on your own. And finally, overarching all of this, really, or undergirding it, is the collaboration and the centering of our communities of color. We touched upon the anti-racist audit, right, at the beginning of this, which has the qualitative data analysis that came out of that lines up with what we continue to hear from our affinity groups and the folks that we are meeting with. You can see some of the community groups that you probably are, that you know as well on the screen. Ms. Duramby has started this year with her team a restorative approaches disproportionate suspension advisory group with folks from this slide, as well as from the community and staff and students as well. And many of these groups that you see on here, we have routine standing meetings with leading groups on a biweekly or monthly basis across the district. And I'll just conclude by this. We know that we have much work to do. We've seen total suspensions come down from about 52% to 42% over the last 6 years for our Black and African American population. It's not enough. They're still suspended at twice their population. But this time this year, through October 19th of 2023 as compared to 2022, we are down in MCPS 202 fewer suspensions in one calendar year. So we are taking the steps. We know we have much work to do, but we believe the things we put into place represent the recommendations and principles in that OLO, and they're just good for kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montaloni. I really appreciate the presentation, you and your team. I'll ask a couple questions and I'll turn to my co-chair and then other colleagues. God bless you. And just to note, the E&C committee will have a meeting on November 30th where we'll take up the anti-racist audit data and restorative justice in detail. Just for my colleagues' benefit, anyone's welcome to join, but obviously there may be some questions about it today, but wanted you to know that there is a committee for in detail on those things. So a couple questions from me. The weekly daily analysis of suspensions, expulsions, and that's a great practice. I know we talked about that over the years. So give me a sense, who's in that meeting again, and how? And
So there's a weekly.
Your mic is off, I think. Yeah.
So there's a weekly meeting, but on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Miss Carla Lopez Arias, right, and Ms. Duramby are monitoring these as they come in, and they're looking at what is the level of this act in our code of conduct. Is the discipline, right, or the disposition in alignment with that level as the code of conduct spells out? Are we having principals who are suspending for more days than that level would be? Are there other avenues for your disposition which do not include suspension that this could have been? So we're asking these questions, and we ask the principals really two simple questions. If you suspend this student, is it going to make your building safer? If you suspend this student, is this student more likely to be re-engaged in the school environment and not do this again? If those answers don't line up, reconsider. That's happening daily. At the weekly meeting, it's the deputy superintendent, it's the chief of schools, it's myself, it's the other three associates that supervise school support and well-being. We have our chief from the Office of Strategic Initiatives, we have our associate of special education, we have our director of equity, we have our director of attendance and personnel services and student compliance, right? So it's a team of associates and directors.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful. And I think I'm glad that's happening. I think that's critical review, and it's a level of specificity that frankly we didn't have a couple of years ago. So when I started on this council, so it's just really good that that's happening. I want to just talk about that middle school number. If we go to back to that slide, that's just a dramatic. If anyone questioned whether RJ was working, and this is perfect timing here. I was just at our largest middle school, Julius West, last week, which has 1,300 students. which I know is responsible for a lion's share of this data, because they presented it to me, and my jaw dropped. I met with the great young men in the BOSS program, which stands for Brotherhood of Superstars. It was about 70 young men, I think almost entirely black young men. There was a couple Latino students in there as well. And it's the leadership group that they have there. And shout out to Principal Staten and Mr. Brutus and Mr. Mensa, who are their leads for that program. But the data that I saw there was telling. And so I want to let you talk about that, because this is there's been some question, does RJ Specialists work? Does it work? This is our largest middle school, mostly kids of color, half free and reduced lunch, and they've seen these dramatic reduction. And not only just in the suspensions, because it's not cooking the books, they're saying the climate is better. So I want to let you speak to that, and then speak to this. This is another part of the question. They were saying that Mr. Brutus, who teaches full-time too, is the RJ specialist, and they would love to have him not teaching so that he could do this.
So you really have the on the ground view of this. I really couldn't have said it any better. We want to do more. We know that we're a large district, and this work is wonderful at the macro level. And I think it's difficult sometimes for people to understand how much it takes to bring it to the micro level. And so RJ Specialists did not always serve at schools. They served centrally because the work is for the whole district. However, we are able to place those specialists in specific schools, and they are in the schools they are in for a reason, 2 days a week. The other 3 days, they have to serve the entire cluster of their schools, about 34 schools. So for 2 days a week, they're in a focused middle school as staff. They're in with the teachers. They're doing the staff development. If a teacher's having struggles, they're in that classroom, training on site. All of that work has given us the most bang for our buck. We just don't have the scope to be able to do it everywhere. So I'm glad you recognize that, and you are correct about Julius West and the change that they've made from spring to even now with some of their specific action planning, but also some of their support. We do have staff there 2 days a week. We have many schools that request that. Most recently, 2 high schools and an elementary school. They want the same thing. We just don't have the scope to be able to do that. So we recognize the success of it, but also the challenge. This is very real for us.
If I may, I think perhaps the example that you gave, Council Chair, was an RJ coach.
Yeah,
right?
As she was speaking, I was just.
So I want to clarify for.
There's 2 levels.
I want to clarify for everybody.
Specialist 2 days a week at Julius West, but then the RJ coach,
Yes.
who is Mr. Brutus, and give him a big shout out, who also teaches. The principal said it would be great if I could have the RJ coach be the coach full time.
We get that request often. So there's a $6,000 stipend at secondary, $3,000 at elementary, that provides 240 hours of time outside of their teaching responsibilities for a teacher in the building. So they attend state trainings, they attend summer trainings, they attend district trainings to be able to implement RJ within their building. And that's wonderful, but it's a stipended position just like anything else. They're not automatically fully released as a specialist would be. So at the 8 focus schools, they have a specialist 2 days a week that's fully released to do the in-time work. And so I know a lot of principals, that was our top request last year, requested that those coaches be released and that we have more time.
Have one of the 8.
Yeah, they have a social worker. So they were assigned, you're either assigned a social worker or a specialist. They're assigned a social worker. And those are based on what the school needs are.
So obviously, I just think when you see numbers like this and we're trying to address this disparity, I hope when you guys come to us with the budget, I cannot see a more value position than this at a critical time when students want to be safe. It's working at this level. I saw it in action. I mean, the eyes of these young people. So we'll come back to that when we get to the RJ meeting, and then when we have the last question I have, and then I'll turn to my colleagues, is the changes in policy. If you could talk about what changes what policies are contributing to the disparities currently, and what have changed. Like when you say we went from 5,000 suspensions 20 years ago to 3,500, that's great. But as we've grown, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But as with disparities, they're stubborn. The disparities remain.
Sure.
And so, can you talk a little bit about
So
that?
I'll talk about a historic one and a current one. So 9,000 suspensions 20 years ago to about a third of that now. One of the policy changes had to do with how K-2 suspensions are viewed. So there are a lot of restrictions now on K-2 suspensions that didn't used to be. There were a lot of suspensions in the early years that mainly were African American students, very disproportionate. And we know that often when a student is suspended one time, it increases the likelihood that they're suspended again, et cetera. And so K-2 suspensions have to go under review. So elementary schools and MCPS have far less suspensions than secondary, far less. And one of the reasons for that is because when a child is in kindergarten or pre-K through second grade, in order for that child to be suspended, it has to be approved by a psychologist. That alone puts a barrier in place of someone maybe enacting a suspension that might not be appropriate based on a lot of factors, including development. So that's a historic one that has had a big impact, not just on Montgomery County, but across multiple states. One thing that we're looking at this year that has had an impact is taking a look at our suspensions that are subjective. So those suspensions are disrespect, which includes the former code of insubordination as well, and then disruption. We call those subjective codes because they're open to a little bit of how What is a disruption to you may not be a disruption to me. And so really taking a look at that with a keener eye in terms of how is that submitted for who? We've seen in the past disparities where the same incident under that code could have occurred at one school, and at another school it's looked at differently. And so those are the only two codes in the state coding that are they're interpretive. What we're doing with the daily audits, and we have not added staff for this is something that we've added to our team, is taking a look at those. When we work with principals in training, we say that if it's a code that can only be coded under those two items, then it's something to relook at. And so we're having consultations about what the behavior is and is it risen to this level. And so disruption is one that we're looking at really carefully. Last year we had 152 suspensions that were not eligible for suspensions go through. And this year that's something that we're taking great cares with. So disruption, disrespect, to a lesser degree, things that are not suspendable like tobacco and dress code.
Thank you.
So that's made a big impact.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that our police department doesn't have a presentation on this. It's just here for questions on this part. But if there's anything would you like to add anything based on this?
That reference suspension for, we don't, sorry, Captain Jordan Sinsky, Montgomery County Police. Thank you for having me. No, we don't.
Not on the suspensions. I just mean on the whole presentation.
No, we don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
You have
it.
enough.
We got enough on your plate.
But please don't think less of us.
No. We do not. We do not. I know you have a presentation for the next item. All right, I'll turn to Councilmember Katz now. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief on this, but first off, thank you all for your hard work, and not just on this topic, but on many topics. These are not easy things to try to change, and I've often said, not just on this topic, but on many other topics, that resources are so very important. If you need resources to change this, we need to be a part of that solution. We, being the county council, need to be a part of that solution to get you those resources. But we don't necessarily know what resources. You're on the ground doing the work. We're not. I mean, the council member can go visit Julius West, but he's there one day. So for the elementary school suspensions, you said from K to 2, I guess, that if they are looking at for some discipline problem, then it goes to another board. Is that what you're?
So for K to 2 suspensions, it goes to a psychologist and the school director. So in secondary, not all suspensions have to be approved, right? Principals and school leaders have that discretion, but for our earliest years, they have to be.
and I know that you all do not need one more thing on your plate. Don't take me wrong on what I'm about to ask, but have you considered doing that for same type of thing? I look at those eyes, the way you just looked at me, for middle school?
So, yeah,
I just looking at her, I was sorry I asked.
okay,
but yeah.
the short answer is yes, right? Where we are, right, so we need to respect, right, our colleagues who are leading their buildings, and not paint with a super broad stroke at all times. However, because of the gains that we saw at K-2, and because of the structures and processes that I mentioned before that we have put into place, there are some schools, secondary, middle, and high, who have bubbled up. So the school supervisor, the director who oversees that schools, has made the decision with X school, you need to consult with me before you suspend another student. So again, it's a best practice that hasn't been formally cut across the board, but we're seeing an uptick in.
And there are checks and balances for specific populations. So if you're a student with an IEP, there are
Please
guidelines.
explain what, yeah.
Yes, if you're a student with special needs, there is a checklist.
Individual, the IEP
Yes,
stands.
the individual educational.
Educational program. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a checklist that includes the special education supervisor, as well as what we call the school RITC, the resource teacher for special education, that there has a consultation that has to happen before that happens. Because along with our African American and Black suspensions that are disproportionate, our special education suspensions are disproportionate. And we've made so many gains in our EML suspensions are down this year. Our Hispanic suspensions are down this year. But with our IEP population, that's something that we have to go through another process with. And there is a great cross-section of our African American students who also have IEPs, so.
My wife was a people personnel worker for a mere 20 years for Montgomery County Public Schools. She was a speech and language pathologist for 20 years prior to that. At the 3:45 discussions that you have on Friday, and I know that everybody wants to have those discussions. I don't know, 3:45 on a Friday is the best time, but do you once you have the discussions and you send those additional resources to the schools that need it the most, or however you said it, do you see a trend where that starts to bend?
Yeah, absolutely. And just with all transparency, this is something that we put into place last week of August, right, of this year. This was an absolute upgrade based on our Plan, Do, Study Act, right, analysis of where we were at the end of last year. But yes, right, so I can tell you that there was, if you see a spike, right, in suspensions, and you know we're all working with schools and you say, oh, well, that was a fight that involved 4 kids. That's why they had, that popped on one day. But we saw at one school over the first 2 weeks where 9 students had been suspended, and there was not some major event that precipitated that, right? So like, wait a second, what's in the water over there, right, out of the gate? So we had folks assemble, go in, talk to the assistant principals, talk to people, talk to the kids, what's happening, and then we had absolutely seen a reduction there. And I could go on with other examples, but to your point, the purpose of this is not to wax, right, about the data. It's to do something about it. So every day there are concrete actions. We go out, we start the next week's meeting by saying who did what with response to these data points and where's the data now, right? And what did you find when you went there? So it's laser focused, individual schools. But I will also say this, and I'll turn on the light, turn off the light. What has come out of this is out of these individual examples, we have elevated district approaches in ways that we had not put into place before, right? So what may seem like a small example was that IEP, student with a disability checklist that a principal must go through before they suspend a student, was just an old-fashioned form. So we turned it into an electronic Google form. We made it very visible to everybody, and so now it comes in real time, and people are monitoring on the back end, and we can track data that way as well. One small example, but to us, it's a step.
And, you know, earlier on, Councilmember Juwanda mentioned cook the books, I think was your expression. And I'm assuming he meant that we're just that we're not just stopping suspending for something that should be suspended for. And I know we're not doing that, but that student that was suspended 14 times, what are we doing for that student? And I see the state's attorney's office is in the audience as well. When we first started mental health courts for district court and circuit court, and I was on that committee, and others, there was a person who I believe was arrested 20-some times for shoplifting or whatever, and they put him, you got that person through mental health court, and that person is, as far as I know, has not had issues since. So we've got to not only put out the fire, we have to figure out why that fire is burning. And so how are we doing that?
So that's where some of the daily monitoring helps, right? Because we can intervene at an earlier state. And without speaking, I didn't name the school or the student, but what ended up happening with that student is they went through an EMT process where the team had to evaluate what were the root causes of the behavior. So they looked at what we call ABC, antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence, what the students were receiving from that behavior, in order to figure out why it was happening. The student did end up needing services that supported some of that student's special needs that were not previously identified. And so that's one way that we could intercede with that. But without that evaluation of someone stopping to say, hey, we're noticing a trend, we're noticing a pattern, can we help work with you to figure out what's happening here? We couldn't move forward with that student. And I suspect that there are many cases that are like that. And so that daily auditing becomes critical.
And to add to that, right, so we do have 15 schools that have action plans specifically to eliminate the disparities in their discipline. So with those schools, we are looking at those students who are suspended more than one time. And the question is also, what are we putting in place for those students? What are the services that are needed? If they already have an IEP, then are those goals also being met, and are they appropriate for those students, and what the behavior that we see in those in the school as a whole? So those are things that we are addressing through conversations, ongoing conversations all year long with the specific schools.
And I have a two-part question, and then I'll turn it back to you, Council Chair. How do we stack out? How does Montgomery County Public Schools stack up to other jurisdictions for this issue? And now I caused you to smile this time. That's good. And if any school system is doing it better, can we just steal their suggestions, please?
That's a really great question. I think a lot of the times people don't realize that we don't work in isolation. We have a lot of partners across the state. There is a group that meets, a professional learning community around suspensions. There's another one that meets around alternative programs, and there's a restorative approaches collaborative. There's a person that is me, and that's Miss Lopez, in every single one of our local educational agencies. And so we do have some similar challenges, but where we do stand out is, and a lot of people don't realize this, we have the lowest suspension rate in the state. There isn't a county that has a lower suspension rate than Montgomery County. And for quite a while.
We're the largest school system.
We are the largest school system. And for quite a while. And so we have made inroads in the last 20 years. The work is important, and we've made a lot of inroads. I think with disproportionality, it goes so far beyond just what's happening in our schools. Our kids that are our most vulnerable populations are our most vulnerable from the moment they enter our schools. And there's got to be an acknowledgement in that. So it's not just the conversation about what happens with our teams that focus on discipline or what happens in special education. It's also what happens with linkages to learning. It's also what happens with our community partners, our resource allocators. It's also what happens with our whole community has to come together around this, because the issue of suspension doesn't just start in middle school. It's the highest in middle school. But we see those trends from preschool, right? And so it goes beyond just what happens in schools. It talks about our parent academies, our community engagement. All of those matter. Suspensions is not one person's job. So I think that's reinforced for me every time that we're with state, right? Every time that we're with our counterparts. We are proud of that number being what it is, and we work on that in continuing to reduce suspensions for all students. But we know in particular, our students with special needs and our students who are Black, they're not being serviced as they should. And we have to own that.
Thank you for all that you do. I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I did want to acknowledge George Sims and Rebecca Marceloni from the State's Attorney's Office who are here and team to answer any questions if needed. Turn it to Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Every now and then we have a briefing or a work session that feels like it should be in some sort of a conference center with breakout rooms and multiple conversations with multiple stakeholders, and this sort of feels like one of those times. I really appreciate the way that Chair Jawando framed this conversation a lot. I love the way you said that, that we all live in the same house. And I also really appreciate the way that you framed, we're all coming at this from different angles, but we all have the same goal, which is supporting and providing the love and support that our kids need, particularly now. So I want to thank Dr. Bonner-Tompkins for once again providing a really helpful report. There are broad strokes in this report, but that are consistent with what we've known for a long time, and that's that, we got to do better in so many different ways. And I have seen evidence just in the last 2 years, a lot of it, of MCPS working collaboratively and hard on getting to the core issues and trying to solve a really complex, multi-generational challenge. And I want to start with a success story where, because sometimes when we get these reports, it can feel overwhelming. But the county has stepped up before to address some really complex issues as well. And you referenced Mr. Sims. He and I participated in a project which we've talked about many times before from this dais, the Kennedy Cluster Project. But what it resulted in before COVID, and of course, like all things had to be suspended, was a very comprehensive approach to dealing holistically with the needs of families. Because when a child acts out, and I say this having spent most of my professional career in the youth development space, it's a symptom of a broader problem, as we all know. They're asking for help. They're just doing it in a way that is unproductive and harmful to themselves and their school community and their peers. But they're asking for help. And oftentimes that help goes beyond what just the student needs, but it's what the entire family needs. And what the Kennedy Cluster Project evolved into was this situation in which families who were in crisis would go to their school counselor and say, we need help. And then a team of county officials representing HHS, recreation, libraries, the state's attorney's office, law enforcement, would literally sit around a table and meet with families to troubleshoot and in real time connect them to current county programs and services. And unfortunately, it was not scalable because that required a tremendous amount of resources and time, but it was incredibly effective. And I feel like we need to look at that model again of holistically addressing the needs of families to get to the underlying issues that are leading to the student acting out in the first place. Because there's always so much more to the story. I did have a couple of specific questions. So it's wonderful and important that we are bringing suspension rates down. It's wonderful and important that we have the lowest suspension rates in the state. Balancing that accountability, which you referred to, is always a struggle and always a challenge, because during our youth town hall last year and in the year before that, we heard from a number of students and a number of parents who felt that they had been the victims of some issue and felt that there wasn't that accountability. And so I'm glad we're having the update on the restorative justice work later in November to get an update on where that stands. But could we talk a little bit about the nature of the suspensions? and what youth and children are primarily being suspended for.
Sure, I can go ahead and get started. I will say that at the secondary level, right, where our suspensions mostly lived at, it is about fighting and drugs and controlled substances in the building. It is not just I am in the bathroom smoking, it is I have stuff with me, I have paraphernalia, I have drugs with me that I am distributing. So those two lanes of incidences are the things that are most lived at our schools.
And fighting is the number one suspendable offense, not just in Montgomery County, across counties, and it is nationally the number one suspendable offense. And we see that probably more than anything else. And believe it or not, last year at least specifically highest at the middle school level. And so our dialogue is not just about the behavior itself, but even the cognitive development, like why does it happen at that age more than any other? Also, the state reports on bullying, harassment, and a few others correlate with that age, I believe it's 11 to 14 is when those incidents are most likely to happen. So we are having deeper conversations for the first time about that stage of adolescence and decision making. But overall, to Ms. Lopez's point, it's fighting.
And there are a lot of victims in that, right? Just the witnesses. I mean, I've heard from teachers who have said some of they're concerned in some cases for their own safety because the level of assaults that have occurred. And so, you know, when we talk about suspensions, I think it's important to acknowledge that these are for very significant issues that are not something frivolous. And so how we address those is complex because it does rise to a separate level, which is unfortunately one of the reasons why law enforcement has to be at this table. Because what we learned when we had the big conversations and thoughtful conversations about the SRO program is that the arrests that were transpiring were for very serious incidences, again, not frivolous, and in almost every case had been at the request of a school administrator for there to be an intervention by law enforcement because of the drug issues of distribution and also of the assaults. So thinking through how to holistically address those issues is obviously really complex, but I think it's important to note that. I also want to go back to something that was said earlier. So it's wonderful to have a system-wide policy and system-wide interventions. But every school is different. Every year within a school is different. Our teachers and administrators change. Our students change. Their needs change. And it's acknowledged in your presentation, which I really appreciate, this cannot be a one-size-fits-all. There has to be a lot of, and I mean a heck of a lot of groundwork done at the school level, which it sounds like we have really focused on. But what I would love as a follow-up to this conversation is to bring some of those school administrators to the table next time, to hear more directly from them on what they're seeing, what they're feeling, because I have every bit of faith in the people at this table. You all are incredibly talented and clearly dedicated to your professions. But you're also 1 or 2 degrees removed from what's happening on the ground. And so it would be helpful to follow up. How are we also supporting teachers, not just administrators, but teachers, to be able to identify, and what supports are we giving in the actual classrooms themselves? If you could touch a little bit on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I think having the school administrator at the table would absolutely crystallize this and the reality that our school leaders are facing. I'm 2 years removed from the principalship as formerly the principal of Richmond Montgomery High School for 7 years. And what I can tell you is that when my principal colleagues at the high school level are thinking much more deeply about every single suspension. And for the most part, if what occurred in the school, whether it is possible distribution of controlled substance or a fight that resulted in a critical injury or if it was not just two guys squaring up, in the locker room like it's 1962, but something that is very violent. If something that is occurring in the schools that is violent or could potentially be a crime if it were to happen at town center, those generally would be the things that the principals would look to suspend for. I think that as you all know, our society and the social determinants of health, of mental health, of safety, we have seen a decline in those, right, over the last 5 or 6 years, and certainly the COVID pandemic was not the cause, exasperated much of this. So that's really where that is, and I would agree. I think I talked to my old colleagues, it's a challenge. It's a challenge on a day-to-day basis. They have small cities, right, towns every day under their roofs with, again, the most diverse set of students you'll probably find in this entire country. With respect to teachers, our colleagues in the Office of Strategic Initiatives, we have district-wide professional development. I think I'll just zero in and speak to an example that occurred last Monday to this point, without giving you a whole comprehensive plan. Let's zero in on one example. So while we do have these district professional development days, and we have schools that have professional development learning progressions in alignment with their school improvement plans, this past Monday, when there was it was a teacher professional day, right, and we did not have students in school, we had a mandatory professional development training for all teachers across the district, where the keynote speaker, it was not a video, we had a keynote speaker who was zoomed in, who spoke specifically about how we address and create environments in our classrooms where we are not criminalizing student conduct, right? Where it's about how we are accepting every single student with the most positive presupposition and care as we engage with them. Because it is that. Our students experience classrooms 99% of their time. That was an example. So they had a half day of district-wide learning, and then each school, after that session was over, had their own school-specific learning that occurred related to the data that they were seeing under that macro approach. So morning macro, everybody gets it. School, second half, differentiated learning on the same topic, specifically for our teachers and our paraeducators in the classroom. That's just one example.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Just final two questions for now, and I may get back in the queue. I know everybody is obviously really interested in this topic, but you mentioned prevention, which I think is so obviously key, and there are multiple different organizations, stakeholders that we're going to, I think, need to be more intentional about engaging. And I'd love to have a follow-up HHS session, because we've talked about all this before. But I think it significantly needs to be updated since what's happened over the last few years. Because the types of things that we're seeing, and again, I say this from having been in the youth development space for over 24 years, I've never seen before. And so it just, and the volume of it is really extraordinary. And we had a crushingly depressing hearing last week on the data of the number of students that are reading at proficiency levels at third, fourth, and fifth grade. Catastrophic numbers. And so you can draw a straight line between some of those challenges and, again, the symptom of a broader problem that is resulting in what we're talking about today. And so there has to be a 360-degree approach from the earliest possible ages in supporting our youth as they go through the entire system. And there had been and continues to be, but we need to re-emphasize the impact of social and emotional learning in many ways. And because it's great that we're making all these referrals to counselors and these incredibly dedicated professionals who are trying to help with mental health, but they have no capacity for follow-up. Once that initial intervention happens, that conversation happens, there needs to be a more comprehensive referral from there, or we're going to continue to perpetuate this challenge.
If I speak a little bit to that, I think you're clearly 100% correct, and I don't have the numbers before me, but I can tell you that our Office of Preschool Education and Special Education has partnered to increase the number of preschool settings that we have across the district. That's one step there. But what that you were referring to is really, I believe I came before this body a year or two ago, the inception of our student well-being teams, right? So again, just to kind of reframe that for folks, every single school has a student well-being team that meets consistently, routinely, often bi-weekly. Every single school has a referral process so that any staff member can refer a student for any reason. It could be attendance, it could be a change of behavior, it could be a decrease in academic performance, it could be their personal affect, whatever it may be. This student is then brought before this body, and this body has your counselors, your social worker, your pupil personnel worker, your parent community coordinator. It has the rep from the HHS side, the Bridge to Wellness, in our 19 Bridge to Wellness schools, and from our wellness centers in the 6 wellness center schools. This process here is where we triage and say, what does this student need? What is the root cause of this issue? And it may be food insecurity. It may be rental assistance. It may be the fact that the family doesn't have health insurance. And so we try to get to the root cause there. And every single social worker has a full caseload. So they are seeing students routinely and ongoing. It's not just referrals. Our social workers at every single high school have full caseloads, and now that we've expanded the number of social workers, we have put in a process by which elementary schools are requesting social worker support, not to come in and lead PD. I've got 3 kids in my elementary school that need their ongoing therapy. Boom, we're going to take care of that. You've heard about some of the work we're doing at middle schools. The same goes for our middle schools. Would we love to have a social worker in every single school? Of course we would. It will take time to scale that up. But beyond that, when we do need to go to our partners in HHS, that is the center, that is the nexus of those Bridge to Wellness programs, for example, at the high school level. If we're at a place where a student needs ongoing mentoring, specifically our Latino students and our EMLs, that is where our PYD folks, our Street Outreach Network folks come in, and we liaise through that student well-being team to get them those services, and that has proven to be successful. We also put into place, I think, 13, this is the name change, but English language counselors or English EML counselors. Thank you. Essentially, we have put together a team of counselors. When our newcomers come to us at Rocking Horse, we don't just process them through like the DMV. We have a counseling session to assess trauma that they have experienced on the way. And then one of these bilingual therapeutic counselors supports the student and the family through their transition into schools and networks with those school well-being professionals there. So we're doing more ongoing therapy and service both within the school, and thank you to the council for providing the resources. We are now able to liaise in real time with our HHS partners and outside agencies if we need to, because we're not just tapping into like one counselor's network or a PCC's network or an individual PPW's network that they may have at a school. We've got a fabric, right, of resources, and also with the HHS folks at the table. So we've taken steps. I know it's not where it needs to be, but we do have pieces in place.
Yeah, I know the framework's there. I've been to Rocking Horse many times, but it's there's more demand than there is supply of support available, clearly, and so. But I'd love to have a follow-up session because I think it would be great to bring our HHS partners here because I know it's happening, and then we can have a more robust conversation as a follow-up because it's a critical part of the solution. Thank you. I yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we are scheduling a positive use development joint session with HHS in November. So I think that will be an important time for you all to be a part of that when we get to that conversation. And just for a time, I want to make sure we get to the CEO program, so I'm going to try to transition us around 11:30, 11:35, so 10 minutes or less each for you two, if that's okay, and then we'll have the second part of the conversation. Councilmember May.
Thank you. A couple of things. I'll try to be quick. I wanted to start, if I can, with Dr. Bonner Tompkins. Thank you so much for this fantastic and thorough report. I wanted to talk about key finding number 3, that there is no evidence that the racial disparities in that we're seeing in the pipeline result from behavior. I think that's a really, really important point. So if you could talk a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Sure, thank you for that question. So when you do a review of a wide body of research that's been done at the national level, led by Russell Skiba, who is Professor Emeritus at University of Indiana, or Indiana University. When they've done studies to look at, pairing children who have had similar types of behavior or misbehavior, and sort of, what the different trajectories are for as a consequence based on where everything is similar but their race. It's very clear that there is bias such that Black children are being held, they're being more severely disciplined. So part of that has to do with, and what our MCPS colleagues acknowledge, has to do with implicit bias and the idea that we're often unconscious of the biases that we have against Black people in particular. You'll have classroom situations, and there'll be different psychological studies that'll show how, when you do the experiment of the kids who are doing the same thing, there's a hyper sort of attention and vigilance, surveillance of the Black kids that doesn't happen for the non-Black kids. So in these different types of studies, it's very consistent. The result is that you have kids who show up and do the same thing but have different consequences. So it's really, just sort of as you go through the research, it emerges over and over again. So it's really trying to recognize that the disparities that we see in terms of suspension rates, even when we look at the idea of fighting or disrespect or disruption. So I observed and I put inside the report data that MCPS shared with their Board of Education last year, where you had children who were being suspended for disrespect and disruption. But I understood that that was actually a violation of Board of Education policy. Those students were not supposed to be suspended. And the disproportionality was higher in the discretionary suspensions than it was in overall suspensions. So again, I think that we have to consider that the data is not just a reflection of student behavior. The data is a reflection of how that behavior is interpreted. And that interpretation is often racialized. And it's really often racialized whether the staff person or administrator is white, Black, Asian, Latinx. We are all immersed in a culture that is anti-Black. And we all absorb these things, whether we are of color or not. So I appreciate that question. I appreciate the opportunity to just sort of elaborate on that a bit more.
Thank you. I think it's important, obviously, to keep this in mind because when we're talking about how we want to, when we're looking at making improvements here, and we talk about we're going to fix the overall behavior, for example, or results that we're seeing in a student population, we're seeing, we want to decrease, the issue of drugs on campus. We want to improve, suspension rates overall. If we don't break that out by demographics, then what we're going to see is maybe less of the overall problem, but those disparities are going to remain unless we are very targeted about ensuring that we are addressing the disparities. So that's why I think this data is so powerful, because here we have addressed specifically that disparity. And so, this is really exciting, I think, to all of us here. And so I would think that we would want to look at this and say, wow, we did all this work to try out a system, to dig into the results, and here we have an answer about a tool that seems to be working not just for decreasing suspension rates overall, but it is addressing the disparity. So clearly somewhere it's addressing the inequities. We should do more of this. And that's going to require funding, but obviously that's a concern for all of us. But when we look at what's a good use of resources, this seems like a really good use of resources. This is data proven. So am I hearing MCPS? Am I hearing some energy around fighting to ensure that this priority is addressed, that you are going to be fighting for the resources needed and allocating resources to have this opportunity expanded to every school in MCPS?
So Councilmember Mink, I couldn't wait to hit the light there to address that question. Absolutely. I'll say it publicly here. We have our essentially our social worker unit and our restorative approaches unit on ESSER. This is the reality of where we are. And I sat before this body during budget hearings last year. We are all aware of what happened and what we need to do to make it work this year. But 100%, we absolutely need these two units on our base budget. It's interesting, right? We're not, while we need the staff.
And to be clear, though, what's funded by ESSER doesn't include this right now. We don't have on-site
No, it does
specialists
not.
in every school. So that would be an additional level of funding
That would
on top
be,
of, right.
just to maintain our current staffing,
Right.
At where we are.
And sorry, I'm going to go back to you in just a second, but I'm just going to say that, Chair Katz brought up a really good question. He said, how do we compare to other jurisdictions and ones that are doing better in this or that area? Is there something that we can copy there, right? We are looking for solutions. We want to fund solutions. You're telling us this is a solution. I just want to make sure that you're not shy about saying, if you want to see this improvement, we have the answer. This is the tool. Here's what it's going to cost, and here's how we're even trying to move around funding maybe now to start to put this in. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when you look at these, somebody said to me a long time ago, you don't staff your way out of problems, right? You just don't throw money and staff your way out of problems. You got to do the hard work with your current staff and then be precise about where you may request additional staff. But just staffing your way out of a problem is not, it's got to be around a specific strategy. And so with that in mind, however, we have 210 RJ coaches who have 5 classes, 3 preps, right? 130 kids they see a day, in addition to doing this as like essentially a coach. We have our specialists, our 9 specialists, right? And then we have our unit of social workers, and we have 1 in every high school. Would we like to have more? Yes. Well, I think what you can see here is when we put a social worker and an RJ specialist together in a middle school, they know the kids. They meet with the kids, they build the relationship with kids, and their time is dedicated solely to getting at the root cause, and they also understand the climate of the school. So you're working individually with the student and with the school climate there. Sean Kay?
To your point, when we work with other districts, I can think of 2 in particular. This is one of the things that have the most interest. I'm working with another district now that has 8 schools that have a similar model but not the same kind of resource to be able to staff that specialist 2 days a week. And this is where the interest is. I'm working with another district whose interest is in alternative program models. But you're correct. Like, this is where the ask is. We have not asked for anything additional other than maintenance. To focus on these 8 schools. Would we like to do more? Absolutely. But where we are with the budget doesn't necessarily allow for that. And so this is a new model. We implemented it for the first time last year. It worked. We're implementing it this year, and we'll continue to see the gains that it makes. Again, to Damon's point, even with the overall reduction in suspensions, it doesn't automatically equate to reduction within the demographic. And for our social workers, they do show an overall reduction in the population, in suspensions, in incidents, but our RJ specialists more specifically show a reduction within the targeted populations. So that's interesting data that's new for us, and we're going to continue to kind of build upon that as we advocate for them. Thank you. And I think that you raised, Mr. Monteleone, a really important point also, that
these are not the only goals that you're looking at. You're also looking at well-being and climate goals. And I think that's really important for all of us to understand and for the public to understand that we're not compromising anything here. We're not compromising safety. We're not compromising climate in order to cook the books, as Chair Jawando stated. So, when we come back to to look at restorative justice in November, and I'll move on to another question in a moment here, but I think these are the points that we need to make really, really clearly. If we could come with the data on that, comparison also, as many metrics as you can bring us to give your full-throated defense to the funding of these positions in our other schools. So that well-being data, that climate data in these schools as compared to other schools, looking at that over time. Because, if we're not going to give you the funds that you need to fund these positions, I need the public to understand what exactly we know that we're giving up on. And if you're going to be choosing to fund something else instead of this, I think we want to really clearly understand why you would be making that choice as well, because this seems very, very clear and extremely effective. The other tool that we heard about today making a really, really dramatic impact on this issue was the requiring of approval of a psychologist before a suspension can take place that we're seeing in elementary schools. And Mr. Montalene, you mentioned how you want to respect the discretion of the knowledge of the administrators in each school, and I understand that, but obviously our job here also is to provide a framework that we know is going to lead to success. So is there a hesitance to requiring that approval for some reason at our secondary schools if we're seeing the impact at elementary? Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, I don't know that it's a hesitance per se, right? But we always like to work, like we would work collaboratively with external stakeholders, community groups, with our building leaders, right? So I think what produces the most productive and collaborative working environment is when you bring folks in and you don't just tell them we're doing this to you, you work with them, so you do it together. So this would require, some ongoing conversations, and we're not painting with a broad stroke here. And I don't want any of my principal colleagues to say, oh, no. What we're looking at right now is we are looking at individual schools where we are seeing anomalies in the data or spikes for any number of data points, and we're working with the school supervisors who have the best relationships with those principals and work with them on a day-to-day basis. And right now, we've created the structures and processes to differentiate our approach based on need of the school, and that's where it sits right now. So I don't think there's a hesitancy per se, but again, all of this is fresh. That structure that you're speaking to came out. We finalized it at the end of August.
And honestly, capacity, in terms of it's a whole position and then some. So if you imagine the 3,000 suspensions, 3,200, you're thinking about 20 a day. When you're thinking about a consultation to sit down to problem solve this with a team, like somebody would have to do that. And that's okay for somebody to do that if we do what we can within the frame of our team with the spaces that we have for that, but there's so much other work as well. It's not a singular position. There isn't someone that is their sole job. So we are considering it, and we do consider parts of it. There are specific schools that might have to do that, but honestly, capacity too.
This might be another example of something that you want to pilot at a secondary school, so you can bring us data like this. That would allow you to defend that. And then I don't have any more time for questions. I'm just going to give you a quick list of data that I would like you to have at our upcoming meetings in November. The ones that I mentioned before, but also data that's disaggregated by school on what types of incidents each school is facing and how each school is handling each of those, including referrals to HHS, Street Outreach Network, and so on. When incidents are referred to, whether incidents are referred to MCPD versus restorative justice, if students are referred to RJ prior to a suspension, all of that breakdown, and then obviously the well-being and climate goals for the schools. And I yield. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And we were going to work with you ahead of time. Now you have a head start on that data, because I think the RJ is a better place to dig into that, which is really important, which you've referenced today. Councilmember Lukey, thank you for your patience.
Yep, no problem, and I'll try to be quick. thank you for the work and the report. And you know, as I read it, and it sort of made me think of other things we would need to know in order to figure out how to best problem solve the things that are happening within the school ecosystem. And when you were pointing out the RJ specialists and their assignment at specific schools, it occurred to me that one study that would be important to see would be to take a cohort that was 6 years older and look at their trajectory and outcomes, and then look for the same schools where those are assigned, and then look at how that is different based on the placement of that resource at those schools, to see within the same school ecosystem what is the different outcome for that population of students who utilize that school over time, because I think that would be really helpful. And I know there are a bunch of different factors that also play into whether it's adverse academic outcomes, disciplinary outcomes, et cetera. And some of those are high school mobility, right, where the kids have attended many different schools and they're constantly being uprooted, and they may only be in MCPS data for a brief period of time, but they may have been in 3 other public school systems within Maryland throughout their K-12 education, and that constant churn and disruption has a significant impact on them. So I'd be curious to see what the impact of the high school mobility, and I don't mean high school, high number of transfers would be over time, as well as those students who are also participating within the foster care system. And I know the state does have that data broken out by school system. There's a lot of disparity in knowledge of resources as well. So whether it's access to the behavioral health care or access to knowing how to navigate when somebody tells you no and how to go get the thing that you need, it's very challenging to understand, well, I have an appeal right. But if you don't have resources, how do you exercise that? If you have language barriers, how do you exercise that, right? So I happened to look and on Friday, and over the past 10 years, there's been exactly 1 child in need of supervision case filed in Montgomery County. 1. No more. And those are for non-delinquency matters, right? So I'm not talking about a child who was referred for something that would otherwise be a crime, but children who may need extra services and support where they've gone to the Department of Juvenile Services. There's been only 1. And that's a lot of kids who could have been getting services that they might very well need and weren't getting them. So I'd love for someone to dig into why that may be happening. And I noticed the data didn't talk about where the children who were disciplined, and there's no data included about victims. And the reason I raise that is because, particularly in the bullying cycle, you can be a bully, you can be a victim, you can then be the bully victim. And as we talk about, particularly in dealing with firearms-related crimes, thinking about breaking cycles of violence, well, it's true in the bullying context that then mushrooms up into, you know, the fist fight type scenarios that we see playing out in schools. And it used to be the CDC data from 2015 on bullying would show you that the spike upward started kind of later in middle school and into high school. And now it's younger. But guess why? Big uptick in who got these and when. And so you're seeing more of what used to happen happening now at the elementary school level. So again, I'd be curious to see if the difference between the data from 2015 for Montgomery County Public Schools to in the more recent years where cell phone usage was more common among even younger children, where you're receiving a device that increases your impulsive communications, I'm going to call them that way, yes, and there are consequences to that, both for the recipient and then for you as a whole. Handle with Care. Where is the school system on being able to implement the Handle with Care program?
So I don't want to speak out of turn. Dr. Chester is leading the work with Handle with Care. What I do know is that we had piloted Handle with Care with our MCPD partners, where they would alert us if something had happened in the home. with a student, so we would know to handle with care. If that student had acted out or had been dysregulated that day, as sometimes happens within behavior, then we would know that that student was impacted by something private within the home, and then it would temper some of those decisions. And you bring it up as a good point, because here's how it affects suspension. If that student had been a handle with care student, they acted out, they threw a plant, they hit someone, that might have been eligible for a specific disciplinary consequence that would not necessarily have been applied based on the circumstance. So it's really important. I don't know if our police partners can speak to where we are.
Yes, actually, so from that pilot program that ran up in the 5th District for, I think it was last year and the beginning of this year, we have been retooling our internal processes for notifications for not only for school reportable offenses that we have to do, but also this program. And we've been piloting that based on the parameters of the pilot. So it's like a double pilot from some time ago. And it has been used with some success. We've only had a few of them, though, I have to say, over the course of the year. I don't have numbers in front of me. But I can tell you, I've gotten, me personally, 3 notifications to then send off under the handle with care guidelines to MCPS.
Okay, super. I mean, because obviously that's a critical component to the overall trauma-informed approach to managing the school environment and managing children's needs and their families' needs. And, you know, I know that when the law changed in 2018, those wraparound services were supposed to be, that the schools were supposed to identify and help match to resources were not just for students, it's just for students and their families where appropriate, because it may not just be the student who needs the services, it may also be the parents. And I know we spent some time talking about the change in suspension at the early elementary school ages, the early childhood years, and that was a state level change that was made in 2017 that you know we've now seen the effects of over time in its implementation, but that was mandated as opposed to where, you know, with the older students there is no such mandate of that kind. Sorry, I wrote all over my page, so it's every which way. You're talking about, obviously, directing the resources to the schools with the greatest needs, but one of the things that comes to mind, specifically based on the climate surveys that were done for MCPS, is that students where minorities are truly a minority end up feeling like an island unto themselves. And they may be schools where there aren't as high a level of needs per se in the broad brush sense, but if you look at those students, they are very isolated. And when you look at the climate study results for those, that's what you would see. Where the schools were more blended overall, you had more positive responses on the surveys from the students. And so I want to be careful that when we allocate resources, we're not having our own selection bias and saying, well, that's a majority white school, but yet the minority students who are there are feeling things in a more significant or more profound fashion.
We see that in the data. Some of our disproportionate schools are not majority schools with children of color.
Right.
And that's not just our data, that's state identified data as well. And so you'll see a diversity in where those specialists are placed. I think were we to share those 8 schools with you, some people would be surprised at why there might be a specialist at that particular school.
Yeah, I also would just add, again, if you were to look at some of the schools that we're seeing on a weekly basis, not necessarily a school where you have a plurality or a majority of students who are black and brown.
Right. And the disturbing school operations, and anybody who's heard me teach about school law, I would always complain about this statute. So there is actually a provision in the education article 26101A which allows for charging with a misdemeanor and or fine and for willfully disturbing school operations. And there was a similar statute at issue in South Carolina. Maryland has had this come up several times during the legislative session to try and remove that provision so it could not be applied to students in their own schools, right? So if it's a parent coming on school grounds and they've upset the apple cart in the front office, and that's a different story. But so that this would not be used because it was something where that particular charge was being used disproportionately against students of color. And when I would teach it, I would say, just pretend it's not there for the kids in your school. It shouldn't be applicable. And the Fourth Circuit case is called Kenny v. Wilson. South Carolina did change its statute, but I'm very surprised that we have not yet fixed that here in Maryland. And I know that the school security folks and SROs are all taught the SARA model of problem solving. That's something that I think would be helpful for teachers and other staff at the school to use, and it's an acronym, so I had to pull it up: Scanning, Analysis, Response, and Assessment. And that's something, I'd be happy to share with you, but it's a great way of, when we're always in a hurry to put out the fire, sometimes it's hard to go back and figure out what caused it in the first place. And if we don't take the time to figure out what caused it in the first place, we're just going to have more fires. And really, when we re-entered after virtual learning, that was a lot of where we found ourselves, which was fire, 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 fire. And yet at the end of the day, we're not going to stop the fires until we know what's causing it underneath. So I would strongly advocate for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lukey. And thank you, obviously, a lot to dig in here, but this was very helpful. We'll see you back for the RJ stuff, but in a couple of weeks. We'll move to our next item, which is an update on the Montgomery County Public Schools Community Engagement Officer Program implementation. And I think we have Chief Operating Officer Brian Hull and Pamela Wheeler. Chief and MCPD representatives are already here. And I did want to give a shout out to our DHHS team, Viviana Azar and Arnesia Moody, and I see Dr. Rolando Santiago here. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you back for sure. You're welcome to stay for this part too, but we'll see you for sure at the Positive Youth Development and the RJ stuff. So thank you for being here. Yeah, and I know it got colder in here. We're working on it. I don't know. I bragged about the heat, and then it went away.
And this building has more hot air in it than any other building.
I saw that. Yeah, and we don't all have jackets.
There you go.
Chief
Somebody
Yamada is
came
ready.
prepared.
Yeah. So I know you all have a presentation. I think you do not have a presentation. Oh, okay. MCPS has. Do you have one? Oh, that's even better. Look at that. All right.
Didn't take
But
us
we have
long.
staff presentation
Yeah.
that will have tee us up, and we have Ms. McGuire and Ms. Farag, so I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll do questions. That's
It
a
was
pleasant
cold till you
surprise.
said so.
Thank you. No, and I think we'll be able to jump into the conversation very quickly. But we did just want to set a little bit of an opening context for this discussion, which follows on, of course, very importantly and very a lot of continuity from the previous discussion. The committees had requested this in order to have really sort of a checkpoint and a status update at this time in the year with the implementation of the Community Engagement Officer CEO program in MCPS. And of course, we have all of the partners here. This is a program, as committee members and the community are very familiar, that has gone through a great deal of change and evolution and had a number of transitions over the course of the years. And at this stage, one of the pieces that I know the committees are interested in hearing about is really to understand what is the dynamic and the implementation of the program at this stage in time. Again, there have been a number of transitions and changes in how officers engage with their schools. And I think that one of the key questions that really has carried through all of the conversations, but seems particularly salient at this moment, is what is the common understanding, what is the consistent and comprehensive approach by which police and schools are working together to maximize the protective, proactive relational aspects of the Community Engagement Officer program, while at the same time, of course, safeguarding against the overcriminalization and other issues that, of course, we were discussing previously and have discussed. I think that that question appears to really be the crux of where this implementation is at this moment. I think collectively we do understand that there's a lot of variability across the schools. We've asked folks today to be able to speak a little bit more to what that variability looks like and where it might be. But again, I think that's a question that we hopefully can tee up for discussion today and also circle back to as this goes forward. Ms. Farag is going to just highlight a couple aspects of the data very briefly, and then we've asked, of course, our police and school partners again to just share some brief remarks without a slide presentation, share some brief remarks just again to address this issue of implementation at this point.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to go over a little bit about how the current CEO 2.0 model is functioning. It continues to clearly delineate what types of incidents must be reported to police, but the agreement assumes the vast majority of incidents are to be managed by NCPS alone. When police are called, it also specifies when police must manage a particular type of incident and also when police may manage a particular type of incident. Generally speaking, and what Ms. McGuire had referenced or alluded to, there is some variability in the deployment of CEOs at this point. Generally, the way the MOU is set up, the program is more of a reactive law enforcement-based model, and that's in comparison to a full triad model of SRO deployment. CEO 2.0 does permit some proactive engagement and relationship building with students if invited by the schools to do so. That'll get down to more of a data issue that we might have, whether or not we are seeing more crime where CEOs are actually in the schools engaging with students, or if there's less crime in those schools. And that's something that I think is worth delving down into a little bit further as we go along. Unfortunately, year-over-year encounter data comparisons are not appropriate or really available at this point, firstly because of a significant COVID school closure disruption in school years 19 and 20 and 20 and 21, but also because of the program changes from 21-22 to the present. As I mentioned, they do permit differential deployment by school. However, just looking at the past couple of years, the last school year, there were over 4,800 incidents or school service calls where police were contacted, and that resulted in 57 arrests and referrals across the school system. Most of the school service calls went to middle schools, which accounted for about 1,800 of those. High schools followed with about 1,700, and elementary schools with about 775. Of those 57 arrest referrals, they're about half and half, 30 in arrests and referrals as far as being divided. In terms of racial and ethnic breakdown of those arrests and referrals, 26 of the students were Black and African American, 26% were Hispanic or Latino, 1 was white, 1 was American Indian, and 3 were multiracial. So far this year, there have been 181 school service calls, and of those, 5 have resulted in arrests and 17 are juvenile referrals. All arrests have been for harassment and stalking this year. Juvenile referrals also include assault and battery and theft over 200. Of these 5 arrests, 4 were white students and 1 was Black African American. Of the 17 juvenile referrals, 9 were Black, 6 were white, and 2 were of unknown race. To try to put some of these school service calls numbers in perspective as far as magnitude of a student population of about 160,000 students, 1% of these 4,800 school service calls resulted in juvenile justice or adult criminal justice system contact. 0.2% of those 4,800 calls resulted in adult criminal justice contact. So when you're talking about the school to prison pipeline, it's important to look at whether or not it's adult criminal justice contact to me, because, and I'm not a youth development expert, but generally speaking, when you look at crime data, children age out of crime. Right? So what happens in school is not necessarily going to be indicative of what adult behavior looks like. And to put it in full perspective, the entire student population, it's about 0.006% of kids are referred to the adult criminal justice population last year. The types of school service calls that involve police tend to be the more serious incidents, such as sex assaults, rape, robbery, and weapons charges. This year, there have been 2 school service calls for disorderly conduct, and last year there were 11 where you're talking about the appropriateness of referring to law enforcement. These are typically more low-level types of incidents, so it would be helpful to better understand if the information is available, what really happened in those types of disorderly conduct calls. At this time, I'm just going to turn it over to the committee and the presenters if they have any questions.
Thank you. So we'll start with MCPS or MCPD. Let's start with MCPD from your perspective. If you have anything to add, context.
I can, real quick, Captain Jordan Stinsky, Montgomery County Police, in charge of the Community Engagement Division. Thank you again for having me. To Ms. Farag's point about the disorderly conduct calls, parrying off what Councilmember Lutke mentioned earlier, those were both for this year parent-related. Both those incidents, that's the reason why we were there. We don't normally get called to schools for disorderly conduct if, let's say, 2 kids are doing something, but that's not where we engage in that area, just so we're clear. As far as this program as it is currently set up, I agree with Ms. Farag as well. We don't have enough longitudinal data at this point to say whether it is a positive or a negative. What I can tell you is, much like what Ms. Farag said, this is a very reactive model. We have peppered in some proactive engagement with the assistance of the schools, which we greatly appreciate, but it's very difficult. From where I had earlier, 23 officers, or 26 when you count the allied agencies, officers stationed at high schools, I now have 1 officer who's got to respond to a high school, a couple of middle schools, and a whole bunch of elementary schools all on the same day. I ran an analysis yesterday because I didn't have anything else to do, and I figured out that, yeah, I could have, yeah. Roughly, and this is an average, our CEOs currently handle about 23% of the day work calls for service in every district. And I only have 26 total, and that includes the allied agencies, just to let you know of how much work they're actually doing. That doesn't allow for a whole lot of engagement. That allows for a lot of, hey, what's going on here? How can I help you? Okay, I got to go to the next thing. That's kind of where we are. And we're missing out on a lot of that engagement, a lot of that understanding of what police do, a lot of the ability for us to step in and assist. People, and I want to be clear, Chief Yamada doesn't just say, you're going to be a CEO, I'm going to be a CEO. You have to apply for it. There's a process. These folks sit down with us in that application process. Not a lot of people apply. It's a really difficult job, and you have to really like working with kids. Some officers, that's not their thing, and I get that. They take pride in not arresting folks. They don't want to do that. I have been very clear with them to work with MCPS, HHS, and any other partners to get these kids, and much like I said earlier, families, the services they need. And if we can help, we'll do that. We are the last end. We're the end of it. If we have to invoke the criminal justice system, or now because of the way the laws have changed, 13 and up for Department of Juvenile Services, we will, but with the idea of it's either a complete public safety necessity because of the dangerousness of the individual, or this is the only way to get them services, because now with the new law, we can't get them services where we could earlier, nor are there other things that HHS currently has, and that's not their fault, or MCPS, it's a funding thing, it's a resource allocation thing. We step in to assist and make that work with our DOC, with our DJS partners as best we can. So I just kind of wanted to give you that framework as to where we are with this program. I'll turn it over to Chief. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I will say that in talking to the SRs or the CEOs themselves, they have acknowledged that the relationships have suffered by them not being directly involved in the schools, the relationships with the kids. And what that has translated into is sometimes a lack of a heads up or intelligence as far as things that are going on inside the school that then escalate to a fight at a football game, a fight after school, 2 kids that are beefing with each other, and then at some point an assault occurs on the school property, things like that. They're just not, they don't have the opportunity to get the heads up and get in front of those things beforehand. The smaller things too, they would use their role as a CEO to enter into discussions with kids that might not normally occur, and that would translate into getting help through other agencies, HHS, or some of the other resources that are provided to the kids and their families in the county. And the families were very appreciative of that. I had several letters of thanks sent to the department on behalf of the families that involved something that would normally not even be police related, but just because they had that relationship with the child, those are the things that they're missing out on, and they miss that. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's good. I'm glad we did it that way to MCPS, because obviously part of this evolution of how we ended up where we are was an effort to reduce police presence and an enforcement capacity in schools, and we landed in this place, but not at the expense of students having trained adults to talk to manage conflict, right? The whole last 2 hours we're talking about how we are doing that and how some things are working and how we need more resources there. So I would love any perspectives from MCPS on how things are going right now in the program, how that translates to your security staff and their role in this, you know, whatever conflict you are seeing, and how the relationship is going from your perspective, realizing it's different. And having just visited 2 high schools last week, I know which have very, you know, I saw the CEOs in both schools, you know, and I talked to them. And so my sense is that, you know, I was at Einstein and at Richard Montgomery, you know, and that one's a Rockville City Police and one's MCPD, that they have really strong working relationships with their CEOs, and that they are, at least the principals are happy with how it's going. So would love to hear from your perspective. That's just 2 schools though.
Great. So Brian Hall, Chief Operating Officer for the school system. Thank you, Chair Duando, council members, for having us here today for this very important discussion. Obviously, the safety and the well-being of our students is one of the most important things that we engage in as a school district, because if kids don't feel safe and welcome at school, they're not going to be able to learn as effectively. And so this is a really important conversation. I don't have a lot to add beyond what's already been shared, but I do want to just point out that this is the 2nd year of this program. And so as we work through the implementation, we still are early on in the inception of this program. And the MOU really does lay out very clearly some things that the CEOs must do and some things that they must not do, but there also is some space for discretion at the school level, because we do know that, you know, we're a big district with a lot of different needs and very different schools across the district, and so intentionally left room for the principal and the CEO to have some discretion as far as how the program is implemented in their school within how it's laid out in the MOU. So I'll stop there. I'll see if our new Chief Safety Officer has anything to add to this. I'll just quickly introduce Ms. Pam Wheeler. We're very happy to have her. She joined us just before the start of this school year. We stole her from the DC Police Department, where she spent several decades working with youth experiencing adverse conditions. And so she's an expert in this area, and we're very lucky to have her.
Wow, thank you for that. Several decades.
I was going to pick up.
Several decades. I'll get him later. I'll get him later for that. Thank you so much.
Started right out of high school. You started right out of high school.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. As my friend over here mentioned, several decades of experience. I'm Pamela Wheeler Taylor. I think just for it was so fortuitous that I've been able to sit in and hear originally the OLO report, and how the interconnectivity of the Office of Safety and Emergency Management plays into the effect. When you talk about a root cause analysis of why our children, particularly our Black and brown children, experience the things that they do as far as the school to prison pipeline, you'll see the interconnectivity with what it is that we do as trained adults and how we respond to the acute childhood traumas that our youth experience. It's very interesting that when I listen to, and this is something, and I've been fortunate to be able to see it from both sides, as he mentioned, several decades on the law enforcement side, a few months in the educational piece, but the information marries. The things that I saw originally from the law enforcement side actually marries with a very interesting point that came up from the OLO this morning, in that the middle school is where we're seeing that great divide. We're seeing things that children, and again, the pandemic did us no great justice, but it wasn't the cause of things. Things that I think that have just been exacerbated. I think Mr. Monteleone pointed that out before. The things that our children experienced are so different from previous generations. And you mentioned again the advent of that social media. Social media is at the crux of everything that our children do. So in speaking with the CEO program, I can speak with it from the Washington, D.C. perspective, where in the SRO program we were in the same divide. There was a decision of whether this was going to be good, this was something that we wanted inside of our schools, or maybe not. But we have to realize and come to the actual, like you said, talking about a difficult conversation, things that we're dealing with as far as acute childhood traumas and criminality are so different than anything we've ever experienced before in our, not even in our generation, but just in the history of schooling in and of itself. Times have changed. And with that, we have to adapt and change based upon the issues that we are seeing inside of the schools. I find my role to be so interconnected in that not only am I responsible for the security of the physical infrastructures of all the schools, but when you talk about safety and you talk about student well-being, this goes to things, and when I thought about my grand entry plan that I'm still trying to work my way through for the first 30 days, first 60 days, a lot of things that I would like to concentrate on includes that anti-bullying. It includes things that were specifically pointed out in the anti-racist audit, and how I can amend and adjust our safety and our collaboration with Montgomery PD to be able to address all of these issues, again, with a root cause analysis of what's going on with our kids, particularly from that 6th, 7th, 8th grade level before they're going into high school. And I can honestly tell you that when they get to high school, it's already too late. They've already developed the norms and mores of how they're going to be. And we have to combat so many things because we only have those kids for a very finite amount of time each day. But then they're going into the communities. So with that in mind, one of the goals, my team has been working diligently on community engagement, trying to engage not specifically from the parents, but I'm working with the Board of Education as well, our school member, student member of the board, in engaging our youth. Finding out what the youth voice is as it is related to our CEO program, and things that we can do to provide the extra assistance. First of all, identifying the students with the that need the additional services and being able to provide those. When you talk about collaboration, all of our other partner agencies to be able to, again, address a root cause analysis of how these kids in these middle school settings are best served. So.
Sorry if I could
please,
follow up real quick.
please.
I think it's important just for me to state this, and I know Dana's behind me in the back there and a few others that were part of this program before these folks. And this is continued. The communication has been constant, and I want to make sure you all and anyone else watching is aware that even as we sit here, I'm not sitting here playing Tetris on my phone. There's something going on, and we've been talking about it all morning. And these are things that happen all weekend. These are things that we bounce ideas off each other, trying to figure out what the best avenue is. But we also take the position, and I know I definitely do, and I'm not going to speak for Mr. Hull or Chief, but we're not the folks in that building when it's happening. Okay. I defer to my folks. I trust them, as does Chief Taylor. Trust our folks to make those decisions. We'll give guidance as necessary, but we both have that same mantra of it's really important that we look for diversionary tactics as best we can, and us coming in as a savior as far as arrest or referral is the last option. That's very important. I
appreciate that, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I know that we've had our third bomb threat at Blair in the last couple of weeks, one today, and you're actively dealing with that, I know, and we thank you all for your work. I know those are scary events for everybody.
Scary more for those folks there. We're here.
Yeah.
But yes, they're on the ground now handling it.
Great. All right, I'm going to withhold my questions because we do have to stop at 12:30, so I'll go straight to colleagues. But it's good to know that numbers are down overall in arrests. I just want to note that. I mean, that's something I think all of us would agree are good. Council Chair Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, first of all, we want to thank Ms. Farag and Ms. McGuire for your fine packet. You once again have done a terrific job for us. And I want to thank the panel as well for doing the work that you're doing, and to thank you all, but to thank those who are also not here, but are doing the work to keep our community safe and our schools safe. And I'm assuming that in some places, the CEOs are given space for the office space and all of that, and in some places they are not. Do you want to touch on that, please?
So in the MOU as written, they're supposed to be provided space in the high schools. It's not delineated for the other schools. And unless I'm being told differently, all of them have that space someplace.
They do, okay.
But they don't spend their whole day there. That's also delineated in the MOU. They can come in, check in, do some paperwork, and they go to their next thing.
Well, and I think that's also necessary that we're talking about middle schools. As we talked about middle schools probably more than anything else on the previous conversation, whether or not we need to figure out if we need to be doing something in addition to keep things safe in the middle schools as well. Please.
In my rationalization, there's no such thing as not enough. We need more. We definitely, and like I said, just in the 2 months that I've been here, I've identified that middle school area that needs intense concentration. So you're absolutely correct in that we need more inside of middle schools.
There again, please remind us of the resources you need. And you know, I mentioned before that George Sims is here from State Attorney's Office. But, you know, he, I guess, heads up, or is certainly one of the main people for truancy court. I can't see you, George, but I know you're there. There you go. I see you waving, yeah. And for truancy court. And I go over to their graduations in the courthouse. And they have a lot of mentors. The amount of young people who are truants who get themselves no longer being truants, and they get, you know, certificates, and the families take pictures with them, and you know, it's a sense of pride that they've gotten themselves turned around. So I don't know whether that's something that should be considered beyond, not just for truancy court, but for other areas as well, if that would be of some assistance, to see if we can get some community mentors in there, because mentors are so very important. You know, when we had the school resource officers, I knew many a police officer who were mentors for students. We heard from people that, you know, didn't want them there, from students that didn't want them there, but we certainly heard from students that felt safer because they were there. So I think that's something that we need to continue, and I'm going to cut my question short as well. But I do think that what is the most necessary that we are doing is to please let us know of the resources and let us know what did work and what did not work, so that we can allocate them effectively. Thank you. I turn back.
Thank you. And Ms. Wheeler, if you do have something to say specifically, you can answer that. I know, for example, I was at Julius West, and they have 3 security guards full-time because they're the largest middle school. You know, I know there's other middle schools that might want that or need that. So I'm assuming that's all factoring into what, when you're talking about your analysis?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. And of course, the Safe to Learn Act is something I'm very, very passionate about. I think everybody who's sitting up here knows that. And, you know, when the law was passed in 2018, there's a phrase that's used in it that I think has been misunderstood over time: adequate law enforcement coverage, right? So when that bill was being written, and I worked extensively on it, day in and day out for weeks and weeks, we didn't have enough officers to cover every school in the state, every public school in the state. That was back in 2018. We now have even less. And so with all the many different advocates from there who were present, because the education subcommittee work sessions were all open, the chair would allow stakeholders to participate. It wasn't just the committee talking amongst themselves. I know because it was my husband. They all came to this conclusion: well, we need to have SROs where there are the highest needs, because we know we don't have enough to go around to every place. And then for the others, we'll use adequate law enforcement coverage. And the state had to develop a document that all local school systems were supposed to use in conjunction with their local law enforcement departments to determine how best to meet those needs, right? And that had certain factors in it, and that includes, I'm going to read them because I can't always remember them straight off the top of my head: time to respond, right, for service calls, number of calls for service, severity of incidents happening in the schools, the severity of incidents happening in the community around the school. So it may not be in the school itself, but there may be issues in the surrounding community that are creating a higher level of need for an officer to be stationed there. Distance to medical facilities, and local law enforcement staffing issues. As I said, that was always to be considered as a factor in that. At the same time, that law also includes the establishment of behavioral threat assessment teams and requires a law enforcement member of those teams, right? And so when they were removed in terms of fully being stationed within a school or school cluster, that eliminates some of the relationship building piece and the informal counselor, mentor, educator piece, because an SRO has multiple functions. The law enforcement function is one tiny part of it. The other parts are all there and supposed to be being utilized. And so without having them there day in and day out in that school community, you eliminate knowledge of what's going on. Like we would have when teaching, because our SROs and school security employees receive identical training under the state's law, identical. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but what percentage of your school security employees are retired police officers? Do you know?
I don't think I have that right off the top of my head, but it would not be hard for me to find out.
Yeah. I would say, generally speaking, statewide, there was a very high percentage of school security employees who were formerly police officers. But since that time of the passage of the Safe to Learn Act, and there is a use of force data requirement for both school resource officers and school security employees, but the law changed as well there, where the law enforcement officers are subject to a state use of force law, statute. But school security employees aren't. Now, school security employees are subject to the restraint and seclusion provisions that passed a year and a half ago. Yes. And that's different. The law enforcement would fall under the use of force, school security under restraint and seclusion. But, there's a lot in that ecosystem that I think is just misunderstood or not understood by the public in terms of how that would work out. It was supposed to be multidisciplinary, collaborative, right? And I know you all do a good job of communicating with one another. But right now, it would be really important for us to see which schools are where the SROs are allowed to participate as a traditional SRO versus those where you're allowed to stop in and do some paperwork, but then you got to hustle yourself out. Because that means those school communities are experiencing this differently. And that's an important thing to know. And I'd love for you all to be able to come back and talk about why the school system made the decision, because again, I know the council, the prior council and the county executive had a lot of input on this, but at the end of the day, under state law, it rests with the school system. It's the school system's decision in consultation with local law enforcement. It's not the council's or the county executive's decision under state law. And would love to know what the decision making is on why you would keep what is now called CEO 2.0 model rather than having them integrated more into the school community again, based on the number of calls for service, which were over, just under 5,000 calls for service in the 2022-2023 school year, which is significant. And at the end of the day, as we discussed in the prior section, we're looking for prevention and intervention. And we're not always great at quantifying what's a win, but I know that both the school security folks and the SROs can tell you when they know they've had a win, because it means you got to work with a kid that day and made a positive difference, right? We don't collect data on that. We don't collect data on the negative that didn't happen, but we do know that it does make a difference. And who a student may go to or trust may be different based on the student. And we never know which adult is going to be the trusted adult, but we do know that we need lots of trusted adults working together in order to make this better. So is that something that you think you could come back to us with in terms of how to create a more even-handed approach to this across the school system?
So thank you for that question. And you are correct. The school system did not precipitate the removal of the officers from the schools. And that, of course, happened before Chief Wheeler Taylor and myself were on board with the school system. But where we are now in the process is gathering a lot of input from our stakeholders, specifically from our students, but also from our communities, from our parents, as far as what do they want to see and what's going to make them, specifically the students, feel safe in school. And so we're in the middle of that process right now of gathering that information. And once we have that, we'll be able to come back and share, what we've kind of learned from our students and our communities.
And then, and I know you have both talked about bullying, and there's a bullying form, but I know that, and this is, again, it's not a MCPS specific issue, it's more of a statewide issue where the data that's captured on the bullying incidents is only captured for those where a formalized, I filled out the whole form and I submitted the form happens, which a lot of it is more informal communication, whether it's a student reporting to a trusted teacher or a parent sending an email, but those aren't being captured. And I think that's problematic because at the end of the day, it's a symptom of a bigger issue, and not everybody feels comfortable doing that paperwork, but they may feel comfortable sending the initial email. And any staff member at the school is capable of filling out the form on behalf of the parent. They could even attach the email to it. But I feel like we are under capturing things, and having a better understanding of what's happening allows, as you talked about, as Damon mentioned previously on those Friday meetings, how to know where we're having stuff bubbling up that we need to attend to minimize the impact of, a fight, what have you, social media threats, those kinds of things. And I have a question for the officers for what I'll call like the top four kind of big problems in the non-negotiables where this is incredibly serious, right? On school grounds or occurring at school events. For the arrests that were indicated in the packet, how many of those were for sex offenses, threats of mass violence, weapons offenses, or drug distribution?
Of the five, the four where it was a pack assault. That's the reason they all got picked up together. It happened on school grounds. And the stalking one had to deal with, of the physical arrest, the stalking one had to deal with some sort of relational thing. So that was handled. And it was if memory serves, there was a mental health component to that as well. The students on the spectrum, the suspect student, and there were no other avenues for us to take, unfortunately. And this triggered DJS. And then a very long time ago, I worked at DJS in Prince George's County in their aftercare division. They have programs just for this because I worked with those kids. They still have them to this day in some concept or another. And that's where that kid's getting services from. So that's the reason why we triggered it.
And you mentioned physical arrest, which,
Yes.
An arrest can come in multiple ways, right? You can have a custodial arrest, you can have a referral to DJS, you can have a citation.
Correct.
Are all three of those mechanisms of arrest referenced in the data that was provided in the packet?
Anything that we had that falls under those three categories.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Luke. You go to Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. I know we're running short on time, but obviously this is a really important topic. And Ms. Mueller, welcome. Thank you so much. We're happy that you are in this position, and I appreciate the comments of all of our esteemed guests here. So, and I'll go to something you talked about, Ms. Wheeler. I alluded to it as well. The minefield of challenges that our youth are having to process and deal with right now are unlike that. That's what we mean by unlike anything we've ever seen. So. Last year, unfortunately, was the first time in the history of Montgomery County where a firearm was discharged in a school. And that firearm was a ghost gun, which you can still easily purchase online, despite some, but not enough efforts at the federal level, in which case kids are getting their hands on these weapons, and they are getting them rapidly. And that, in addition to the fact that we've got hate crimes going on in our schools, active hate crimes going on in our schools. And we also have a fentanyl crisis that has expanded exponentially. And last year, we had a joint committee session to get a briefing on the challenges of the vaping that was happening within schools, to the point where some students were afraid to go into certain restrooms because they didn't feel comfortable and they literally weren't allowed to go in. They were called the vape rooms. And that's just a handful of challenges. The gang issue, unfortunately, seems to be coming back, which, is complex. I don't say that to fearmonger. It's a fact. These things are happening. Our students are processing and absorbing these challenges every single day. And what we hear repeatedly from families and parents disproportionately black and brown families and parents is that their kids don't feel safe. We have had a surge in applications of independent schools here regionally in the DMV in the last 2 years, a surge. There are now wait lists. And among the reasons that parents say they are applying for independent schools is because they no longer feel safe in their own schools. So obviously this is a foundational issue, and one that is complex, and then one that is multi-layered, and one that we have to address holistically from a prevention standpoint and providing those support services, especially mental health. But while we're doing all of that, we have this challenge before us. And so my deepest concern as we made this transition was those referrals, those preventative conversations. But what we were told at the time was that we're okay because we have school security officers who are caring adults who have a law enforcement training and a direct line of communication to the officers that are assigned to these particular beats, and even more broadly than that, other officers within certain precincts. How is that going? How are those referrals happening? How are we tracking them? How are we making sure that when a student does bring information to a trusted individual, whether it's a teacher or a security officer regarding an incident that they're concerned about, something they've seen online, how are those referrals going, and how are we tracking that?
I think what actually happened, and thank you so much for that question, and as you mentioned, it's a multifaceted arena of things that we're dealing with as far as youth interactions and youth engagement. As far as Mr. Monteleone reported out on a weekly meeting that we have, and he neglected to admit that I'm inside of that meeting as well. I was in on the planning meeting, and what we do is, again, we correlate all of the incidents that have occurred during the previous week. It happens on a Friday. And from that perspective, we are able to try to get a more preventative approach, or at least a sort of picture of where things are happening in order to be able to provide resources to those specific areas. As far as the referrals themselves, again, I believe it factors a lot on the communications of the security teams that are inside the schools. As you mentioned, a trusted, trained adult inside of schools is our most important weapon at this point, to be able to get a first-line basis of things that are happening, again, because you never know who that trusted adult is going to be, who that child is going to come to, and as Chief Yamada said, to be able to let us know that a small incident that may have happened in school, someone rolled an eye in the girls' bathroom, and all of a sudden you have this major brawl. So as far as those interactions and the tracking of events that occurred, again, it's the communication between myself and the MCPS team, my team, and as well as our Office of Student Wellbeing, to be able to actually, again, get a line on those things and to be able to identify those kids that are involved in activities before the activities start, and to be able to finalize sort of like an action plan to be able to address incidences where they are low level before they spike up. So as far as the referrals, again, we have a meeting, Captain Satinsky and I, again, we walk in lockstep with each other. Events that are occurring, we have the reportable offenses process that we go through, so we know whether a child has been involved in some type of potential criminality or actual criminality inside of the school and outside of the community, to be able to correlate those things and to be able to address action plans on being able to, again, provide the appropriate services for those children. That's a process that I am just at the infancy of, and learning how to better coordinate, but it is one of my goals to be able to, again, because this entire ecosystem revolves around the processes of everyone in the Montgomery County Public School System in coordination with MCPD. And it is so, and I like what Councilmember Jawando said, in that this is our house. So there's no one entity where this information is stored. So with that in mind, it's our goal, again, to work collaboratively. We have a lot of, and again, you'd have to forgive me because I'm learning all the acronyms and things of that nature, but I know that student well-being plays a high point in that. And that information is being shared between the police department, between my security and safety team, and also our Office of Student Well-being.
I appreciate that. And then the training that our security officers go through, and I know at one point, just like every other position
in every sector these days. We were finding it hard to onboard people. How is that going? Are we fully staffed with all of our security officials at all of our schools at this point? Because I know last year that was a real struggle.
Yes, we are. And when you talk about the training aspect of it, this is the point where I'm jumping in again with the training. One of my first processes was to devise a system, because I know specifically these folks, and as Chief Yamada said, these individuals, the Montgomery County police officers who are SROs or CEOs, are specifically trained in childhood trauma, childhood incidences of things that are just happening, both in social media, both in acute childhood traumas. So is our safety team. They undergo the same types of training. The dynamic that I'm facing with the training through the Montgomery County, is it Maryland State Safe Schools, is that there are very few training sessions. If they were plentiful, all of my staff would be trained right now. So with that in mind, we've devised a plan to be able to expedite this training as soon as possible. So there are certain parts of it, I think it's 70 hours total, so part of it is asynchronous and virtual, and the other part is actual physical. We're having a dynamic wherein the physical portion is either so far away in range or either so far away in distance that it's becoming an issue to be able to get folks trained, but we have concentrated efforts on being able to break it down in phases. So phase one of that will result in the asynchronous part of it being completed by the end of October 30th. So that's very, very important to us. The very next training is not going to be until March, but we already have all of our folks assigned for those trainings, and to be able to garner everything that they need, because again, those are our tools. This is how we address the interactions that we have with our children. So I know more than anybody else on this board, but I specifically have a very, very serious and intentional process to be able to get all of our staff trained and be able to, address the issues that are dealing with our children.
I appreciate that. I guess moving forward, if there's a way to quantify how those referrals are going, again, we're only in year 2 of this version.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jordan. It might help to know that from the police standpoint, we either get information from a security personnel or security staff member to our CEO, or from Pam to Jordan maybe 10 to 15 times a day, and I think they're working on trying to figure out a way to track that, which is what you were asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know if maybe that helps a little bit, but
it does. And I guess the other component I would say is, and again, wearing my former hat at the rec department, kids are out of school much more than they're in school. And a lot of the incidences that are happening that bleed into the school day start in school, or sometimes they start out of school. And what this ecosystem of caring adults, and going back to this really robust out of school time model, in which we have robust support from a security standpoint, but that we're sharing information in real time as these things happen. I think we got to go back to that, and somehow empowering or supporting security staff beyond just the school day, to give them an opportunity to interact with recreation department, youth development professionals outside of the school space, to have more of these relationships, to make those not even hard but soft referrals, I think is going to be really important, because we used to hire and bring, the SRO officers would often volunteer to come to the midnight soccer, futsal, basketball league programs. And so there's a lot of information sharing and trust building that was happening then too, which helped us address the gang issue 9 years ago. And I credit a lot of that with helping bring down what was absolutely an emergency. So if we can, in this next phase of this, empower our security officials to have that same opportunity, I think it'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarez, and I'll turn to Councilmember Mink to close us out. I just make the point, we brought this up in the when we were talking about the opportunity gap, like correlating attendance with these students. That would be another factor here, like our truancy and attendance team. Like, are we seeing overlap? And I think these are some of the things we can get into when we have our positive youth development conversation in November. Yes.
Can I just jump in
please,
on that one?
Please.
Can you comment, if we're aware of it, but how much for truancy, that there are students who are afraid to come to school? Do you know how that might work?
I don't think I have been able to get a feel for that at this point. That's one of my, part of my entry plan, again, to address some of the root causes of truancy, but I have not gotten any anecdotal or even qualitative data at this point.
Yeah, and that's where the PPWs and there's a whole bunch of interconnected pieces to figuring those things out. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the last conversation that we had around the OLO report, because the OLO report, which I think you heard pretty universal compliments on the work of Dr. Bonner-Tompkins and her team on that. And that pointed us in the direction of how to address some of these issues, and especially the racial disparities that we see when we're looking at, that we need to address as we are deciding on what solutions to lean into. And I want to make sure that that conversation, that research and data and those realities are informing this conversation fully. One of the key recommendations in that report was reducing and ultimately ending police presence inside schools, creating school justice system partnerships to offer diversion programs, and developing emergency mental health responses to address students' immediate needs and behavioral episodes. And in our previous conversation, we talked, with a lot of enthusiasm about funding up some of those pieces, improving partnerships, leaning into restorative justice. But now we're talking about the police presence part of it, and the recommendation here was reducing and ending police presence inside schools. And I want to be clear that the report, and also myself, is not talking about that in isolation. Like, that's not itself a solution. This is part of an overarching, long-term goal that we have to improve the results that we're seeing, which includes these other key partnerships, building up our mental health infrastructure, the restorative justice program. All of these pieces are necessary to get to those goals. But I don't want to forget that, again, one of the recommendations there is the reduction and ultimately ending of police presence inside schools, and also noting that we don't have unlimited staffing for MCPD. Staffing is very, very tight there. So we, as a council and as a county, we need to be thinking about what are the most strategic ways to deploy those sworn officers. And we're being told here that here's a space where the results are going to be in our favor, that we can reduce police presence here and lean into these other things and free up our police staff to go about some of these other tasks where we really, where we're hearing from the community that there's a lot of need there. I want to make sure that we are united in that goal and keeping that in mind. We have data now that should be able to help us with backing up those decisions, which I realize is a politically difficult one. We have schools that have more of a presence of their CEOs on campus than other schools. We have data about the effects of investing more in our restorative justice programs, having on-site folks instead of just folks who are called in. We have the data to be able to make these comparisons between the different schools. And so if we could be looking at that data disaggregated to be able to help us see where can we afford or even benefit from having less police presence on schools. And I don't want to take anything away from the CEOs who love their jobs and who are, build relationships with students and all of that. I know that is something that's happening as well. The question is about, we don't have unlimited resources. We need to find the things that work the best and deploy people responsive to the data, not leaning into people's guesses and individual experiences and all of these different things. So, and I note this also when it comes to the survey that's being developed, because if we're asking students and parents to say in isolation, how do you feel about CEOs in schools? You may well have some families and students who are just like, well, we need help and resources. So yeah, I'll take that. Now, you're also going to have some who say, I see a negative impact there and I don't want that, and we need to listen to those voices as well. But the point is that everybody, as they're making these decisions, including and especially, obviously, the council as you make budget decisions, but also your families, need the context of all of that data. CEOs are one tool that we have, and we need results. We need to be looking at data that shows, the impact of that, which again, we have a lot of that in the OLO report, and parents need to have that as part of this decision-making process. But they also need to hear about all these other things that we can be increasing our, our budgetary contributions to, so that they know what they're deciding between here. We don't want to take away things and leave them with nothing. We want to make sure we are fully investing in the things that are going to make the most difference, because we can't fund everything. So if you want to just speak to that, if you could speak to what this survey process looks like and how you're making sure that students, parents, families, community members understand the full context of the decisions and the options that are in front of them, that are in front of us, and how that's being discussed, with amongst yourselves and with the board. And I note also, the street outreach network. That's another big one where we need to be able to have these comparisons. We've heard from Louise about how there are some schools that and from MCBD as well, about how there are some schools that make tremendous use of the street outreach network, and other schools that don't. I understand that MCBD also makes referrals to the street outreach network, but are there schools that could have been making those referrals before it got to the point, as you raised this point, before, an incident happens and now MCBD has to be called in? Could the street outreach network have been called in to do more of that groundwork beforehand? Similar questions to, restorative justice and all of that. But we need all of that data, I think, on a school-to-school basis to be able to compare apples to apples and decide not just, is this good? Is this better than nothing? Each of these things, but what is the best use of our resources, of our staffing, and so on? MCPS, could you speak to that to some degree?
I think, with part of that, you mentioned basically how to, with the limited resources that MCPD does actually have, how do we differentiate or sort of come up with the process that needs the most, the systems that need the actual most? And with that, you're talking about whether or not, what I typically find is that when you get into the issue of actually removing something from a process, we have to be very intentional about the things that we are going to either substitute that process with or actually implement inside of that process. So what normally happens is that there's a lot of with the OLO report and that recommendation about sort of having to backtrack the CEOs from the schools, I agree with you that the survey is going to be very, very instrumental in the way that it is actually presented, and thank you for the suggestion of being able to have that holistic picture so that we're not gathering information in a bubble. But the survey is not designed to be a specification of whether this is good or whether this is bad. This is to get an overall approach, because again, as you mentioned, each school is different. Each school has different needs, and where you may get an overwhelming appeal of, yes, I need CEOs at particularly troubled schools, another school may say, well, okay, that CEO plays no role in our culture that we're having here. So it's very important, again, like you said, that we're putting the entire picture to the families, to the communities. With that in mind, that's where we have a lot of just varied approaches. We're going to be inside of the schools, actually getting the school culture, but also outside in the communities to be able to get the families' culture. And also we're dealing with a lot of community groups to get varied opinions, including including Luis. I work very, very closely with Luis, and we've developed a communications train, whereas he and I speak every Friday. If not before every Friday, if something is not happening. But we're trying, in order for me to actually get my thumb on the pulse of what's going on inside the community. And you mentioned the uprising of the potential gang culture. Things are simmering. But our job, and again, with the assistance of Montgomery County PD, again, because I cannot minimize the importance of being able to have that communication, because they're in the communities. You mentioned the rec centers. You mentioned things that are happening outside of the schools that my folks might not necessarily have that footprint, because I'm minimized as well. I have a relatively small staff, and the system is huge. So again, I think pinpointing, like you said, the areas that actually need to be there. one is no more important than the other, but I think,
Can I pause you there?
Sure.
Chief, because one probably is more important than the other, but we need the data to, and we don't have unlimited budget. We have to be able to make these decisions, right? And so, I know you know that, I'm just, clarifying. So, when we talk about, there may be some schools where, there's a lot of incidents, and so we really need more, CEO presence, for example. That assumes that that more CEO presence is what is going to best solve that problem, right? And so what we need is data to clarify whether that's the case, if that makes sense, right? If we can, and that benefits everyone here, right? If we can be calling them in less and they can be doing other things, that's helpful for the conversations that we're having about police staffing in other areas as well. And, the OLO report is telling us that they would presume that that's going to be our data, is going to show that these other resources are going to have better effects with fewer racial disparities. And so I want to make sure that we're not assuming that this type of school or these type of incidents, that's the number one solution, if that makes sense.
and I totally understand that, and that's why from a holistic approach, again, you can get the qualitative data, you can get the quantitative data, but there are a lot of variables that are occurring inside of these relationships that are built inside these schools. These are humans, and sometimes that cannot be captured with the quantitative data. So I understand exactly what it is that you're saying, and I think that is a start, but from a holistic approach, it applies a lot more than just the quantitative data at this point. We're gathering right now, trying to gather the quantitative data, but again, I think we mentioned with the OLO report, it would be good to have some folks that are actually affected. So to have those folks actually come here, I would like to have school administrators come here. What are you experiencing on a day-to-day basis that would make you say that CEOs are not good inside of schools? I would like to have students. What is it that you feel? And as you mentioned, a lot of transfers, a lot of rumble is coming about because folks just don't feel safe inside of schools. What is that experience? So I think besides the numbers in and of itself, it would be good also to have actual folks to be able to give us a breakdown of how it is that they feel and let them make that decision.
I completely agree that we need to have more stakeholders present. I know that you all are engaging with stakeholders. It'd be great to hear more, not right this second, but about the details of what that engagement looks like. And something I think that we can think about for those November sessions is how we can maybe bring some of those voices in front of us, the administrators, the students, and so on, to hear from them. I think that would be helpful. But I know you're also saying in addition to the quantitative data, and I want to make sure that it is in addition. So I look forward to getting data, if we can, that really, again, disaggregates by school. Here's what their practices are, and here's what the results are, including CEO presence and engagement, restorative justice, street outreach network. Yes, we need the qualitative as well. Anecdotes are helpful, but we've got a lot of schools. We've got a big budget that's going to be very, very tight, and we need clear data to guide us as to what best practices look like overall, so we can make some of those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I was just conferring with my co-chair here. We will come back to this when you have more of a sense of getting your feet under you, when we can have some of this data. I do think sending over that survey, when is that supposed to go out? Has it gone out?
Actually, we're starting
the development of it, or
no, we've already developed it. So
okay, so it's
the survey itself.
Yes.
Okay,
has it been sent out yet?
Yes, we're in the process of. We're actually in phase 1 of it, and it's within the next couple weeks or so. But
okay,
not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be good to just have insight into. Obviously, you send out what you send out, but to the points that Councilmember Makes said, and just data on from all points, because this is all connected, right? It's a holistic solution of how are we going to keep everyone safe, and what is or is not working at certain schools. Like we saw some things, I think, pretty dramatically in the earlier presentation that are working, and to reduce conflict. And the question is, how do we get a better handle of that? And again, realize it's imperfect, right? We're never going to, make a perfect decision, but we want to make sure we have a full picture. And again, it's not even, in many ways, it's not our decision to make as a body, but we are, as the funding entity, we have to make budgetary decisions, right? And so I think this is a good start of that conversation. Really appreciate the work you're doing, and I would see if Oh, Brian, yes, you have your,
Yeah, I was just going to say, in addition to the survey, we're also doing small group meetings with community members and students as well to gather, more than just a survey. And we're happy to share the survey and whatever data that we're able to garner. But as you kind of alluded to, it is going to be imperfect because there are so many factors at play that impact this data. And as the council member mentioned also, it's really difficult to prove a negative, right? How do you prove that something didn't happen within a school because of this factor or that factor? But we're happy to share, the data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some will just be naturally, we're 2 years into CEO 2.0. Whatever is happening, realizing it's varied across schools, we will know something, like we will know the arrest stat, the same things we were tracking before to get to this point. But let's add more variables to that. Yes, Captain?
Thank you. So I just wanted to address one quick thing. County Police, we follow the community policing model. It was born out of the late 90s, right? Everyone's read it. It's the 9,000-page document that we all, basically the end result is get into your communities, get to know your communities. It was said earlier today by Mr. Monteleone, schools are their own little cities, right? CEOs, that's what they're doing, is they're getting in there and they're getting to know their communities and interacting. And like Councilmember Abelner said earlier, and I was here when that happened, SROs were absolutely a pinnacle point in the dissolution of our criminal gang problem that we had here, because our SROs at the time were able to develop those relationships in middle school and in high school and provided information, whether outwardly or confidentially, to our investigators to assist us, not only here, but in other jurisdictions, to dismantle these organizations. And this is all through relationships. We can't capture that on a spreadsheet. And trust me, I would love to, but I can't figure out how to do it. But those end results, like the negatives we can't quantify, those things happened, and we are seeing a difference in how our officers interact with people, not only in the schools, but in the public at large, for a myriad of reasons. But we don't have those same relationships. We don't have that same building prospect. But again, we're using the baseline of community policing. Sorry, I know we're out of time.
No. Thank you. Councilmember Cass.
And the only other thing I was going to suggest is when we're doing all of this data, if we could have victimization data as well, I think that would be something that we would like to know about as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Mank, did you?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that point. And, no data set is going to be perfect, but like there is data that we can point to. You can look at when CEOs are removed or increased or whatever, like how does that impact various numbers compared to schools, where that wasn't the case. So there are ways to do this. Maybe this is a question for a data analyst, but I just want to make sure, again, that we're not relying on people's feelings about things, because that's just going to vary wildly, and we don't have the money to do that. So what works, what doesn't work, and please show us some numbers and some data to demonstrate that. We do have very, very clear data, national data about some best practices, but clearly, there's a need and a desire, and I sort of understand it, to see that on a local level. So if you could, do your best to find ways to look at these different tools that we have so that we can make database decisions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We got it heated up just in time to close. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.